The true young master, he bluntly refuses to return to his biological family. And why? Because he knows the entire plot of this novel. He is the so-called true young master. And he's destined for a tragic end, no matter how hard he fights it eventually. He gets defeated by the fake young master, his so-called biological family. They're completely brainwashed by the fake master's overpowered protagonist halo. No matter what, they always fall for that manipulative, two-faced act. A total drama king. Our guy just saw a recap video about this very novel. In the comments, he casually typed, "If it were me, I'd make sure that fake." Guy gets totally wrecked. Next thing he knew, his vision went black and boom. He transmigrated right into the story, but hey, with memories from 2 lifetimes. He can do whatever he wants. Why on earth would he choose to suffer? So, for almost a year after arriving, he just kicked back, chilling at his adoptive Old Man Arthur's fish stall, living the perfect slacker life. Of course, he also used his past life knowledge to make a small fortune on the side. Just as he was lounging around watching a movie, a sharply dressed old man walked in. "Greetings, young Master Carter. I am Butler William of the Lewis family. The master has sent me to bring you home." But before our hero could reply, a familiar electronic voice chimed inside his head. "Ding, congratulations to the host for triggering the return to the family storyline, the true and fake young Master Fate system has been activated." Say what? This darn system. He's living his best life and it just had to crash the party. He completely ignored Butler William standing right next to him. Just the name of this system gave him a headache. "Hey, system," he mentally yelled, "do you have any idea how comfortably I'm living right now?" Seeing him just space out, Butler William repeated himself. All right, I get it," he finally replied. "But Butler William, go back and tell that family of yours that I absolutely refuse." Before he could even finish, his throat felt like it was seized by some invisible force. He couldn't speak. "Please cooperate with the storyline host, otherwise this world will be reset and you will cease to exist." Holy cow, he took a deep breath, turning to Butler William with a totally forced smile. "All right, I'll go with you." Over an hour later, the car stopped in front of a magnificent Maine estate. Butler William opened the door. "Young master, we have arrived. The master and madam are waiting for you inside." Hearing this, our guy paused his mental boxing match with the system, reined in his thoughts, and simply followed his lead. For now, he just had to figure out how to speedrun this whole ridiculous plot. He needed to get back to being a couch potato with old Arthur. Meanwhile, at the Lewis family's dining table, "It's okay, Julian," the mother Evelyn said softly. "Even if your brother comes back, we will always treat you as our own son." His third sister, Chloe, chimed in. "Julian, don't worry, you will always be mom and dad's child." She then turned to her parents. "But mom, dad, is it really okay to bring him back? I mean, he's been living out there for so long. He's probably a total delinquent." Julian, the fake green tea master, then began his Oscar-worthy performance. "Third sister, it's not his fault. My biggest wish right now is to just get along with him." Hearing this, Chloe nodded affectionately. "Julian is the sweetest," but before she could even finish her sentence, then a clear set of footsteps echoed, instantly snapping everyone's attention. As all eyes locked onto him, he was about to step past the butler to say something. But as his eyes scanned the room, he saw it. Just as expected, there wasn't a seat for him at the table. Ah, the classic trope. The true young master returns, only to find he can't even get a chair. Of course, he's not the type to just swallow his pride. He heard every single word of Julian's phony little speech. To beat a drama king, you have to out-drama him. He walked right up to the table and gave them a long look. So he supposed these were his loving, biological family, and they sure knew how to treat him well. On his very first day home, and nobody even bothered to get a chair for him. On one side, they're showering Julian with affection, and on the other, they are judging a guy they haven't even properly met yet. What a truly united family. Faced with his direct sarcasm, the expressions on everyone at the table shifted uncomfortably. For a second, nobody knew what to say. Seeing the silence, the fake young master Julian quickly spoke up. "I'm so sorry, brother. It's just that it's usually only a few of us eating, so we totally forgot to add a chair for you." Wow, that line was as sharp as it was self-righteous. He was basically implying, you just showed up out of nowhere, who's really to blame? Hearing this, the guilt in his biological parents, Richard and Evelyn's hearts faded just a bit. At the same time, they secretly thought to themselves, this kid really has no manners. Oh, he just leaned on his chin, eyeing Julian, who was playing the perfect innocent victim. "I seem to remember there are sisters in this family, right? Why don't they get along with you all? Do they usually not come home for dinner either? To deal with a two-faced snake, you don't need to be more deceitful. You just need to be sharper. You want to play the good guy. Let's see how long that mask stays on once he rips it off." Seeing her precious Julian get called out, a girl named Chloe instantly glared at him. "Of course they come home. Our family is great. Why would you even say that?" He just shrugged, playing innocent himself. "I was just curious because by Julian's logic, if they came home, they would probably have to stand and eat too." At this point, the system in his head just couldn't take it. "Host, stop messing around. You're just a side character who gets bullied endlessly. If you get kicked out of the Lewis family now, how will I ever get my performance bonus?" He calmly shot back in his head, "My fate is my own, not for the heavens to decide. You told me to ensure the story progresses, but you never specified the process. Even with your 10,086 rules, there's no strict rule on my attitude." The system went quiet. "Host, that makes way too much sense. I can't argue with that." Seeing that he wasn't backing down, Evelyn, though displeased, broke the awkward silence. "Butler William, get another chair for the young master." "Yes, madam." As he spoke, a flicker of anticipation flashed in Butler William's eyes. He had a whole new level of respect for this newly returned young master. It seemed he and the maids were about to have some very entertaining drama to watch. When the chair finally arrived, our hero had officially cleared the first hurdle of the True Air storyline. No longer having to stand while eating. He quickly finished the steak and salad in front of him, then turned to a maid. With Carter's bowl of cream soup untouched, Evelyn spoke up, "Is there anything else?" She frowned slightly. "You still have your soup. Wasting food is shameful." Carter just smiled politely, drawing on his past life's experience. "Sorry," he said. "I have a big appetite. Our family isn't so poor that you can't let me eat, right?" Seeing his chance, Julian immediately interjected. Mom, please don't blame him. He's lived on the outside for so long, it's normal for him too. Want to eat things he's never tried before." Hearing this, Evelyn's face fell. A flicker of disappointment crossed her eyes. She looked away from Carter, signaling a maid. Her impression of him had clearly just dropped another notch. Carter glanced at Julian. Truly the king of playing the victim, he saw the change in Evelyn's expression. He genuinely felt this family was completely nuts. They couldn't even see through such a basic, childish manipulation. But right now, Carter had no energy for their petty fights. A full stomach was his top priority. Half an hour later, as he finished the last piece of crab, Evelyn finally turned to Julian. "Julian, take your brother upstairs to his room. Carter, even though Mom doesn't have the best impression of you yet, you are still my flesh and blood. I want Julian to lead the way so you two brothers can get a little closer." Carter's mind raced. He wondered if Julian would frame him for an attack. Or maybe just push himself down the stairs. Despite these calculations, he kept smiling gently. "Lead the way, little brother." His tone, however, sounded like an order for a servant. Julian immediately put on a pitiful face, a mask of pure suffering. He looked at Evelyn as if Carter speaking to him that way was a mortal sin. Evelyn frowned. "Carter, you're the older brother. How can you speak to your younger brother like that?" Carter mentally cursed. Was she crazy? He'd speak however he wanted. But arguing with this drama queen was pointless right now. In these classic fake young master stories, talking back would just get him scolded. Meanwhile, Julian would soak up all the sympathy, so Carter decided to flip the script. He would give Julian a taste of his own medicine, bowing dramatically. Yes, yes. It is all my fault, young Master Julian. Please lead the way, this old servant. Does not know where the room is, hearing Carter call himself a servant. The Lewis parents grew deeply uncomfortable. After all, he was their biological son. Carter calling himself a servant made them feel like complete villains in their own home. All right, enough, Richard Lewis finally spoke up, his tone softening ever so slightly. Julian, take your brother upstairs. Carter, you don't need to be so formal. This is your home, after all. Julian sensed the non-negotiable tone in his father's voice. He knew that playing the victim wouldn't work any longer, so he turned around. He obediently led Carter to the second floor. Once upstairs, however, he didn't go to the room. Instead, Julian started a grand tour of every single room on the floor. He made a special show of his gaming room and private study. He was practically trying to carve the words, "I am the real master of this house," onto his forehead. Seeing he was about to show off his bedroom next, Carter bluntly slammed the door shut. A pure power move. Enough, where's my room? I don't have time to play around with you. For this kind of person, the best way to crush them is to hit them where it hurts. To make them feel deeply and utterly embarrassed, Julian's actions, in Carter's eyes, were no different from a stray dog marking its territory. You don't deserve it. Back. He should have just rotted away. Seeing Carter tear away his friendly mask, Julian's facade dropped completely, replaced by a look of pure disgust. He sneered, claiming to be the only true young master. Carter was unfazed. He simply asked where his room was. Just as Julian was about to explode, footsteps echoed from the stairs. A smirk spread across Julian's face. Time to see who the most important person in this house really is. Without a second thought, he raised his hand, slapped himself hard across the face, and collapsed onto the floor. Carter wasn't even shocked. This guy was ruthless. He watched the bright red handprint form on Julian's cheek, crossing his arms to enjoy the show. A moment later, a figure rushed up the stairs. Julian, what happened? With his audience in place, Julian began his award-winning performance. Second sister, it's fine. I know my brother hates me for taking his place. If this makes him feel better, he can hit me. It's all my fault. Please, brother, he cried, don't take it out on our family. Good grief. If this kid doesn't make it to Hollywood, it's a huge loss for the entire film industry. While Carter was admiring the acting, the second sister, Sarah, stood up. She glared at Carter with icy contempt. What gives you the right to hit him? Didn't your parents teach you anything? Mom and Dad never should have brought you back. With that, she lunged forward, hand raised, ready to slap him, but Carter wasn't having it. He casually reminded her that hitting people is wrong. Catching Sarah's wrist in a firm grip, the playful smile on his face vanished completely. What makes you so sure I'm the one who hit him? If you want to play games, fine. Sarah was furious. Let go of me. It's just you two here. Who else could it be? The commotion brought everyone from downstairs rushing up to see what was happening. Every eye immediately fell on Julian, still crumpled on the floor. Julian. Seeing the whole family had gathered, he doubled down on the pitiful act. Carter, why would you hit me? Seeing that slap mark, the last bit of guilt in their mother Evelyn's heart evaporated, turning to pure disappointment. Carter told them not to jump to conclusions, releasing Sarah's hand. He then looked at Chloe. Third sister, you're a professional actress, aren't you? Don't you dare call me third sister, you thug, Chloe sneered back at him. So what if I'm an actress? What's that got to do with you hitting Julian? Carter just repeated himself, ignoring her murderous glare. If you're an actress, then you must know that when someone slaps themselves, their thumb points towards their ear, but when someone else does it, the thumb points outwards. In an instant, every eye in the room zoomed in on Julian's face. As they say, sometimes you're too close to see the truth. After Carter's explanation, their gazes shifted, now filled with a hint of suspicion. It was like they were truly seeing their younger brother for the very first time. Surprisingly, Sarah was still on the floor, her face full of worry for Julian. Julian was panicking. Damn it, how does this country bumpkin know so much? Seeing the doubt in his family's eyes, Julian decided to play his final card. He wailed, "Brother, I know you hate me. You can hit me, you can scold me. But why would you frame me like this?" The crocodile tears started flowing instantly. And you have to admit, it was a super effective move on everyone except K.H. Lowe. With a look, he cuts right through Julian's little performance, not another word. No more time to waste. He steps forward and grabs K.H. Lowe's hand. "Take me to the security room." He knows how these stories work when the hero asks. The fake young masters people have always tried to mess with the footage. So he had to be fast. K.H. Lowe hesitates for just a second. Then she nods. "Fine, I'll go." His logic about the thumbprint planted a seed of doubt. She's thinking if he was the culprit, he would never ask for video evidence. The cameras, after all, provide the most solid proof you can get. In fact, everyone should come watch, he says, looking around at the others. He puts his loving family on the spot, unless you're too scared to look. "Fine, we'll all go together," Richard says, his voice deep. "Julian, you too. If you're innocent, I will get justice for you." At those words, Julian flinches. The mention of cameras makes him tremble uncontrollably. He's panicking. He was just about to call his inside man to delete the video, but who knew? This outsider wouldn't follow the script, so he quickly cooks up another plan. He pretends to stand, then with perfect timing, collapses dramatically to the floor. Fainted, seeing him fall, the family, who had just turned to leave, freezes. Sarah immediately screams at him, "You hit him, you made him faint." Fainting at the perfect time, he just ignores her yelling. Instead, our protagonist decides to drop some more facts. Try feeling the flesh. Under his chin, if the muscles are soft, it's a real faint. If not, just blow some air into his eyes. A truly unconscious person's eyes won't move. Not even a twitch. Hearing his words, everyone's gaze falls back on Julian. Julian's heart is hammering. How in the world does this guy know so much? Spotting a servant trying to slip away, he calls out, "Hey, hold on. If you're all so worried, call a doctor, but I'm afraid if we wait, the cameras might just miraculously malfunction on us." Hearing that, Evelyn, the mother, frowns. "Are you suspecting that we would?" "Frame you, just got here, got to be careful," he replies, grabbing her hand. He takes both Evelyn's and K.H. Lowe's hands, walking toward the servant who tried to run. "If mother is suspicious, too, let's all go see. One person wasn't enough." But dragging the mother along ensures that nobody will dare touch that footage. Seeing his wife and daughter being pulled away, Richard quickly follows them. He's worried our protagonist might actually get violent. Only Sarah is left. She's making a frantic phone call next to the still-fainted Julian. Guided by K.H. Lowe, they arrive at the security room, and he sees a familiar figure. It's the same guy from the crime scene, just about to open the door. "What are you doing here?" Seeing the whole group appear, the servant freezes. He swallows hard, stammering, "Madam, young master." "Miss," seeing him stutter, the three Lewis family members exchange shocked glances. "You stand right there." Richard glares at the servant and storms past him. He bursts into the security room. "Pull up the footage, second floor, from 12. Seeing the master so furious, the security staff doesn't dare delay for a second. They quickly find the video. As it starts playing, our hero calmly sits down. "Just fast forward to 12:15, he says. Of course, he's not worried. It was time for Julian's top-tier solo performance, right from the very start. Carter wasn't worried. Even if the video was somehow faked, he had other methods. He already figured that, based on classic novel tropes, Julian fainting meant one thing. A fake medical record was definitely going to pop up later. No need to fast forward. Thanks to that suspicious servant, Evelyn, who had always doted on Julian, was now on high alert. She wanted to see Carter's master plan in action. As the video played, the expressions on everyone's faces just got weirder and weirder. From Julian leading Carter around in circles to him, bragging outside his own rooms. Acting like the master, terrified Carter would steal his inheritance. They could kind of get that part, but the conversation that followed, that completely shattered their image of Julian as the sweet, obedient boy, and then came the finale. The grand moment, him slapping himself and diving to the floor, all captured. In crisp high definition, with this laid bare, the three of them no longer believed. Julian had actually fainted. "My dear, loving family," Carter joked sarcastically. He turned to Chloe as the video ended. "Third sister, see that? That's what you call getting into character in a single second. You should take some notes." Even as he said it, he was mentally ready to call the police. In novels, even with stone-cold evidence, the family always blindly defends the fake son. But to his shock, Chloe simply nodded. "You're right, I definitely need to learn." "I'm so sorry, I completely misunderstood you." Beside her, Evelyn grabbed his hand. Her face was full of guilt. "Carter, Mom is so sorry, I should never have doubted you." As for Richard, he said nothing, but the guilt in his eyes didn't escape Carter. What in the world was this, seeing the three of them suddenly wake up to the truth? Left Carter totally baffled. According to the plot, shouldn't they be ridiculously biased? All right, can you just show me to my room now?" he finally asked. He gently patted Evelyn's hand, signaling he was fine, then pointed over at Chloe, who was now smiling, even though third sister isn't heavy. Dragging her all this way was exhausting. Their sudden change benefited him. So he decided not to dwell on the drama. If Julian dared to pull another stunt, Carter would show him what a real critical hit actually felt like. Yes, Mom will take you." Evelyn turned to the servant. "Bring the young master's luggage to his room." As for Richard, with the truth now out, he simply said, "All right, let's go." As the head of the family, he couldn't just immediately bow his head and apologize. Not like the women could, but deep down, he was already planning his compensation. Through this whole mess, he realized Julian was, after all, just Julian. The story of the farmer and the viper was true. Some people can't be changed. Just as they were about to leave, a servant ran over, completely out of breath. "Master, madam, the doctor is here, but young Master Julian still hasn't woken up. The second miss told me to come get you all. Then, let's go have a look." Richard's face darkened, his voice dangerously low. He hadn't even had the chance to go settle the score with Julian, and the kid was already pulling another stunt. "Let's see what trick he's playing now." Watching the servant lead, Carter turned to Chloe. She looked deep in thought, so he started a conversation. "Hey, third sister, want to make a bet?" Among the three of them, Chloe was the only one his age, making her the perfect target. "A bet?" she asked, seeing his eyes crinkle with a smile. With a smile, she asked curiously, "What do you want to bet?" Having dropped her initial prejudice, Khlo was now finding this younger brother completely fascinating. Compared to Julian's two-faced act, his straightforwardness was refreshing. Hearing their conversation, Richard and Evelyn silently perked up their ears. They wanted to see what this son was up to now. It was simple. After agreeing on the terms, the group arrived at Julian's room. He was lying there perfectly still on the bed, unconscious. Beside him stood a female doctor, around 25 years old. He'd rate her a solid 9 out of 10, exuding a very gentle aura. Unsurprisingly, this was the Louis's family's private doctor, if he guessed right, with that look and aura. She was definitely the gentle, supporting female character in the novel. But to confirm, he had to wait for her diagnosis. Before the doctor could even speak, Sarah, anxiously hovering over Julian, snapped right at him. "Dad, why did you let him come here? If it weren't for him, Julian wouldn't be in this state." Still stubbornly believing he was the one at fault. The second sister's words made Richard frown slightly. "He's your brother, too, and how is Julian's condition?" "Mr. Lewis," Young Master Julian's condition is not good, the doctor, Stella, replied immediately, based on my assessment. Due to excessive anxiety combined with blunt force trauma to his cheek, he has suffered a mild concussion. These two factors caused a lack of blood flow to the brain, leading to fainting. Exactly as he predicted. Right on the money. Instantly, all eyes turned to him standing there next to K.H. Lowe. The expressions of the three Lewis family members turned incredibly ugly. Why? Because the bet he just proposed was exactly what the doctor's diagnosis would be. He had predicted she would use excessive anxiety, mood swings, and cheek trauma leading to a concussion as an excuse, conditions that cannot be verified without proper medical equipment. You must be the newly returned young master. Seeing his relaxed demeanor, Dr. Stella pushed up her glasses and said, "Seriously, I didn't expect you to know so much. Being the same age as young Master Julian, I just learned a few tricks from the village vet, nothing much." Blocked by his sarcastic reply, Dr. Stella continued respectfully but firmly, "Then please do not doubt my professionalism. After all, I graduated from a top-tier medical academy." Though her words were polite, her tone carried a clear hint of disdain. She was definitely Julian's accomplice. Having confirmed this, he decided to go on the offensive. If Julian got away with this little fainting stunt, there would be endless trouble later on. His own biological second sister was looking at him like she wanted him dead, for crying out loud. "Oh, you're that amazing." He grinned, "But the village vet taught me a trick. It just so happens to be used to check if a patient genuinely fainted from anxiety." Saying that, he grabbed a feather from a servant's feather duster. As a top medical graduate, "I'm sure you won't mind if I try to wake up my dear little brother, Julian." Seeing him approach Julian, Sarah tried to rush forward to stop him, but K.H. Lowe held her back. Dr. Stella also wanted to intervene, but Richard's piercing glare rooted her to the spot. So he easily reached Julian's bed and yanked the blanket off his feet. "Little brother, time to wash your feet." Because he was so nervous, Julian's body was covered in cold sweat. Wrapped up tight in socks and blankets, his foot odor had fermented into something truly vile. And hearing our hero's sickeningly cheerful tone, Julian was about to lose his mind. He could just picture the family's disgusted faces, but before he could mentally curse him out, Carter began tickling his foot with the feather. It felt like a colony of ants was marching right under Julian's skin. He nearly screamed, but breaking character now meant he was absolutely doomed. Using every ounce of his willpower, he tensed his muscles, grinding his teeth. Trying desperately to stay silent, with the show over, Carter winked at Evelyn. He reminded her of that little fact he'd mentioned earlier. He wasn't holding back. Not for Julian's sake anyway. The smell was so overpowering, Carter had to hold his own nose. If his feet stewed any longer, even a professional pedicurist would probably weep. Evelyn gave a slight nod, walked up to Julian, and braved that lethal stench. She touched his bicep, feeling the rock-solid, tense muscles completely. Unnatural for a person who's unconscious, her expression darkened as she nodded at Richard. Here's the thing, when someone genuinely faints, their muscles are supposed to go completely limp, but Julian, trying not to laugh, had tensed up his whole body. Evelyn felt the difference the very moment she touched him, a dead giveaway. With his wife's confirmation, Richard's face turned to absolute thunder. He demanded to know how much longer Julian would fake this, giving him 3 seconds to get up. If not, he'd be kicked out of the house for good. Hearing this, Julian panicked. But getting up now would ruin the entire act. He bit his lip, determined. He was going to play dead to the very end, but Sarah, still clueless, glared right at Carter. "And you, put that feather down," she demanded. She lunged forward to snatch it. Carter dodged with ease, and in that same motion, the feather accidentally brushed right under Julian's nose. That awful foot odor, combined with the extreme mental stress, became the absolute final straw. Julian just couldn't take it anymore. He fainted for real from the smell. This insane twist left everyone staring at Julian in utter shock. Even Sarah, who just lunged for the feather, stared back with pure disbelief. Is this really what a mild concussion looks like? Seeing it all go south, Dr. Stella quickly tried to divert everyone's attention, blaming young Master Carter, accusing him of being too heavy-handed, but she clearly didn't realize that besides Sarah, everyone else was thinking the same thing. Julian was exposed. So why was she still pushing this lie? That's what Richard, Evelyn, and K.H. Lowe thought. It was just as Carter said, these two definitely had something shady going on. What a terrible partner in crime. Carter secretly smiled, pulling out his phone. Right in front of them all, if Dr. Stella was so sure, he proposed. They should take him to a hospital. He pointed out a top-tier hospital just 3 kilometers away, a perfect distance, even though Julian's little act had backfired and ruined his image. Carter knew how these fake young master types worked. If he didn't crush him completely right now, he'd just be back to making trouble. The 3 family members knew the truth now, but they still hadn't exposed him. They probably wanted to see what he'd pull next. As for Dr. Stella, if she stayed, who knew what other chaos she would cause? This time, he had to get that biased doctor out. Seeing Carter go completely off script and demand a hospital visit, both of them froze. Julian, blinking back to consciousness, and the usually calm Dr. Stella started to panic. They knew the truth about his condition, the so-called concussion and anxiety. They were completely fake. If they went to a real hospital, the entire lie would be exposed. And when the truth got out, Dr. Stella was going down too. "Mom, Dad," Julian said, his voice choked with tears, unable to hide his terror. He spoke weakly. "It's late. You don't need to work so hard running around. Having Dr. Stella here is enough." His original plan was to kneel and beg for forgiveness, but he saw the servant who edited the video give him a subtle nod. So he changed his mind, deciding to keep up the act. This tactic made him seem considerate and gave him the perfect excuse. "I didn't know what was wrong with me." After all, he wasn't a doctor. How could he possibly know what was going on inside his own body? But he completely overlooked one thing. Why was our protagonist, the one who was supposed to be punished for the video, standing there totally fine? And why was he the one ordering him to the hospital? Our hero's thoughts, every man for himself. "Have a safe trip." Noticing Julian's sudden shift, the 3 Lewis family members glanced over at that same servant. Their minds were already made up. "A concussion is no small matter. We're going to the hospital," Evelyn said. She stepped forward and ripped Julian's blanket off. "Get downstairs right now. We are taking you." She had to see how long this adopted son would continue to act. If her husband hadn't told the servant to play along, she might never have seen his true colors. "Really, there's no need to trouble yourselves," Julian insisted. Though he wanted to agree, Julian had to maintain his caring family facade. "Julian, just go to the hospital," Sarah chimed in, still completely in the dark. She was the only one who believed him. "It will prove you're innocent." In her mind, he just didn't want to tire the family out or ruin the harmony. Such a good sister, Julian thought smugly. He then put on a conflicted expression. "Well, let's just not go tonight." He was waiting for the family to get angry and blame our protagonist before he would reluctantly agree to go to the hospital. His sister may be a bit dense, but her supportive timing was absolutely perfect. Seeing Julian's smug look, our hero had to fight back a smirk. He had one last gift. And the only person really sweating bullets right now was Dr. Stella. If that fake medical record was exposed and Richard blacklisted her, her whole career in this city was completely over. Panicked, she quickly interjected. "If we're going for a checkup, let me drive everyone to Grand C Premium Hospital. The equipment there is much more advanced. The results will be more accurate." "No need, Dr. Stella. Who knows if you secretly own that hospital?" With one line, he cut off her only escape route. He held up his phone, ending a call. "Yes, we're bringing the patient down immediately." Hanging up, he faced the crowd. "The ambulance is already waiting downstairs. let's get our little brother Julian moving. Really, there's no need to go through all this trouble, Julian pleaded weakly. Hearing the ambulance was here, Julian bit his lip, looking at our hero with teary eyes. Though he didn't speak, his expression screamed it all, even though. You did this to me, I don't want to get you in trouble, but our hero just smiled. No trouble at all, just a small matter. He grinned, turning his phone screen around to play a certain video. Actually, I also really want to know how you did it. Model managed a concussion on his own. The second that video played, Julian's face went ghostly white, his heart pounding in his chest. Before this footage, even if a doctor found nothing wrong, he could still spin some excuse. But now, the video was undeniable. Paired with a perfect health check, the whole story was about to completely flip. Realizing this, his pathetic act fell apart. He panicked. No need for a checkup, I'm fine. Oh, too late, little brother, he signaled the staff. Someone escort him down to the ambulance. Hearing this command and seeing Richard wasn't about to intervene, several huge servants began to drag the frantically struggling Julian downstairs. He really had been blind. Watching Julian flail around like a total madman, Richard shot a dark look at Dr. Stella, then turned and stormed out of the room. Well, the show was over, time to go. Seeing everything was taken care of, he waved at Khlo with a grin and followed a servant to his quarters. After unpacking, it would be time to collect on his bet with the family. As he walked toward his room, Chloe pulled Sarah into the security room. She clearly felt the need to explain things to her sister properly. Oh, and he wasn't just tossed in a basement or some cramped utility closet. Led by the servant, he arrived at his room. He set his suitcase down. Compared to the usual returning young master shoved into a basement or under the stairs, his treatment was absolutely top tier. The room had a gaming PC, a walk-in closet, a private bathroom, and a huge king-size bed. All in all, it was a perfectly normal, ideal room for a guy his age. He hadn't expected his biological parents and sisters to flip their attitudes around so fast. Lying on the bed, he finally pulled up the system that he'd been ignoring all evening. Let's confirm this again. I just need to be present at locations where plot events involving me happen, right? Correct. Faced with a host practically born with a rebellious streak, the system felt powerless. When he was dismantling Julian earlier, it had almost hit the emergency alarm. Luckily, his actions didn't violate any of its 10,086 rules. Otherwise, it would have used its power to stop him, thinking about his top-tier performance. The system felt a headache coming on, but still followed protocol to distribute the reward. Deng! Congratulations to the host for completing the Acknowledge the Lewis family in Jiangnan task and officially moving into the Lewis estate. Reward, Master-level mixed martial arts skills. The moment the notification chimed, his head felt itchy. Good Lord, was he growing a second brain. In an instant, his mind was completely flooded with knowledge of MMA. Traditional martial arts, Sanda, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Baji, and even the legendary electric 5-whip strike. You actually gave me martial arts skills. He felt his body, which seemed exactly the same as before. No, wait, exactly the same. He curled his lip. Luckily, he exercised regularly, so he could physically pull off most of these moves. After digesting the sudden influx of memories, he stuffed some clothes into the closet and walked out with his suitcase. Carter, where are you going? Just as he carried his suitcase to the ground floor living room, he bumped into Chloe and Sarah, emerging from the security room. Couldn't find your room, let me show you, Sarah offered. No, I'm heading back to my old place for a bit. He shook his head at Khlo, going out again. Does our bet still count? Of course it does. Hearing the bet, Khlo immediately caught on and offered him a ride, since cabs were hard to find. She insisted they take her two-seater, but then Sarah suddenly jumped in. Me too, I'm so sorry I misunderstood you. Carter just waved it off, saying, we're family. Don't sweat the small stuff. Seeing Sarah's head drop in shame, he knew she got it. He just smiled and told her to let it go. The truth was finally out. He was a little surprised they figured out their mistake so quickly, but hey. He wasn't about to get all arrogant about it. Having more allies on his side would make his new slacker life much easier. Sarah was stunned he forgave her so easily. Her shock quickly turned into genuine emotion. She once made Julian a little mad. And it took months of her allowance just to get back on his good side. The difference was huge. It was like night and day. Plus, thinking back, was she really wrong to stop Julian from barging into her room while she was changing? It seemed so obvious now. With her prejudices stripped away, Sarah, like the others, finally started to think clearly. Can we go now? Carter was a bit confused by Sarah's sparkling eyes. Was this girl for real? She seemed so incredibly naive. He hadn't done anything, yet she looked ready to follow him to the ends of the earth. Let's go, he said, offering to take her suitcase. But Sarah was faster, grabbing his luggage and linking her arm through his as they walked. It wasn't until they were halfway down the path that the abandoned KHLO finally reacted. Hey, I'm the one who acknowledged our awesome new brother. How could you just steal him away? I was the one who kindly told you the truth, you know. She yelled, Carter, wait for me, and started sprinting after them. There was no way she was going to let Sarah monopolize their brand new brother. Over an hour later, they arrived at a small fish stall in a pretty rundown part of town. Old Arthur, your boy has hit the absolute jackpot, a woman's voice yelled. Just as old Arthur was worrying about Carter adjusting to his new home, that shout pulled him right back to reality. He looked over at the panting woman. Mrs. Barnes, he asked urgently, what happened to my boy Carter? Your boy brought home 2 absolutely gorgeous girls, she said after catching her breath. Mrs. Barnes was ecstatic. They'd known each other for years, so she made a proposal. When the time is right, have Carter introduce that other girl to my family. As the neighborhood's top matchmaker, seeing 2 beautiful girls was like striking gold. If their car hadn't been so ridiculously expensive, she would have just asked them herself. But hearing about 2 girls only gave old Arthur a massive headache. This kid leaves in the morning and by the afternoon, he's a full-blown playboy. Oh no. Thinking this, he silently unbuckled his divine weapon, the 7-star leather belt. Today, he was going to teach this boy the real meaning of loyalty. Meanwhile, Carter had no idea. He was oblivious to the fatherly love coming his way, looking helplessly at his 2 sisters. They stood frozen at the entrance of the fish market. You 2 can wait here, he offered. It's not crowded now, but they don't exactly clean up well before closing. He knew that even if it was walkable for these 2 pampered misses. This place was a completely different world. The floor was sticky and gross. Fish scales scattered guts, dropped shrimp, and murky puddles covered everything. Combine that with the summer heat and the air was potent, seeing this messy place. Sarah felt a sharp pang in her heart. This is where her brother lived. In conditions like this, and she actually tried to kick him out of their home today. As an actress, Chloe was a bit more adaptable, but even she was shocked. Movie sets were nothing compared to this reality. The smell of rotting seafood in the air was an experience she'd never had before. No need, let's go in together. Pushing down her discomfort, Sarah shook her head stubbornly. If her brother lived here for years, then one walk through was absolutely nothing. Let's go together, Chloe agreed. We should visit Uncle anyway. All right, if you don't mind. Seeing their insistence, Carter led them through winding alleys to the old fish stall. But before he could even speak, a furious roar erupted from inside. You little punk, I haven't seen you for one afternoon, and you've already turned into a degenerate. If I don't teach you a lesson today, I'll take your last name. Seeing old Arthur charging at him with a 7-star belt, Carter quickly dodged. Don't, old man, even if you don't teach me a lesson, I already have your last name. Still talking back, old Arthur roared. Let's see how much of a playboy you are when you're still wet behind the ears. I'm not a playboy. I'm innocent, he cried out. Don't you know me? I'm more innocent than Snow White. Ah, darn it. Eat my electric 5-whip strike. 10 minutes later, in the room above the fish stall. Old man, couldn't you have just listened to my explanation first? he asked, rubbing his butt, which felt like it had been shattered into 8 pieces. He glared resentfully at old Arthur, who was just calmly sipping his tea. I kindly came back to pick you up, and you hit me with an electric 5-whip combo. Who told you not to explain properly from the start? Ignoring Carter's resentful glare, old Arthur looked at the 2 girls sitting quietly. This kid didn't cause you 2 any trouble, did he? Through the explanation Carter gave during the beating, he now understood the situation and knew these were Carter's biological sisters. Carter is very well behaved. Remembering his verbal spar with Julian, Chloe mentally added, well behaved when he's not up against my enemies. Sarah didn't know what to say, so she simply nodded in agreement. Don't you know me? Rubbing his butt, Carter stood up, his joking demeanor gone. Seriously, he asked, are you really not going to come live with me? This was the deal he had with the Lewis family, to bring old Arthur to live near them. Though Richard requested he not live in the main villa, he did promise to buy a small house nearby with servants. As long as old Arthur agreed, he could enjoy an early retirement. I'm used to it here. Old Arthur waved his hand and stood to go downstairs. I'm stepping out for a bit. Don't make your sisters wait long. He knew this was Carter showing his filial piety, but like any father, he refused to be a burden to his son. What a stubborn old mule. Watching his back, Carter sighed and placed a sleek black bank card on the table. Evelyn had given it to him before he left, saying it had $5 million for pocket money. But old Arthur never spent the money Carter earned, claiming it was his blood, sweat, and tears. It's why, even though they had achieved financial freedom, he still insisted on running the fish stall, partly to see his neighbors and partly to save up more for Carter's future. But this card came from basically selling his body to the Lewis family. He couldn't call this his son's hard-earned sweat anymore, right? If he didn't take it, fine. Carter could always come back to visit as long as he wasn't stuck here forever. System, I have some opinions on you slacking off. Are you the system? He completely ignored it. Seeing him put the card down, Sarah realized she was starting to understand her brother a little better. How could he just leave empty-handed? He grinned at Sarah, pulling his suitcase over to the fridge. He then proceeded to stuff it with all the snacks old Arthur hid for his cravings. Into his bag they went. As he packed, he muttered, "This old man greets me with a belt. Let's see how he likes it when I clean out his stash." Chloe clearly didn't approve. She watched him take the snacks, but she didn't stop him. She remembered how he used to snatch junk food right out of old Arthur's mouth, nagging him to eat less. A sharp girl like her instantly figured out his real intentions. This kind of tough love caring was actually quite charming. Sarah, a bit more naive, didn't think about it so deeply. She just saw her straightforward brother being endearingly quirky. 10 minutes later in the car, a drama was already on. Why are you wearing my clothes and using my things? You just wanted a thrill, didn't you, you absolute scumbag? He watched the ridiculous drama play out on his phone screen. A classic soap opera called The Temptation of the Returned Trainee. Chloe angrily punched the back of his seat. Scumbags see a pretty face and just lose their minds. Don't let me find him in public. Calm down, it's just a TV show, he thought. He quietly moved his phone away, scared an enraged Chloe might toss it out the window. Hey sis, aren't you in the entertainment business? How is it that you act like you've never seen a script like this? Faced with his question, Chloe scratched her head, looking a little embarrassed. Well, Mom and Dad don't let me take villain roles, and we almost never watch these dramas at home. In that moment, her authority as an older sister felt seriously challenged, even though she held absolutely zero real authority over him. Anyway, I see, he said. He didn't find her answer weird. According to the fake young master trope, these sisters were destined to become Julian's devoted fans anyway, and in those stories, the female leads are always sheltered and pure before getting conquered. No problem, whenever you want to watch this stuff, just tell me. I have a massive library of these dramatic soap operas. Chloe nodded, her eyes wide. Awesome, I'm actually really interested in these plots. she felt like a new world had just opened up. The more she watched, the more Julian reminded her of the manipulative villains in the show. The same victim-playing routine. "You two are too much," Sarah, still driving, yelled out in pure frustration. "Couldn't you wait until we got home to watch it together?" If she had known, she never would have volunteered to drive. Now she could only hear the audio, not see the show. She was dying of curiosity. What does the villain even look like in that dress? The need to know was absolutely torture. "Don't drive carefully." Chloe and he shouted at the exact same time. "What, you two are bullying me." Glancing in the rearview mirror at their heads huddled together, Sarah stewed. "Fine, if you're going to be unfair, don't blame me for being unrighteous. Witness my ultimate overtaking skills." Chloe and he screamed as the car swerved like crazy. Meanwhile, in the living room of the Lewis family, Julian, fresh from the hospital, was kneeling on the floor. Tears streamed right down his face as he looked up at the Lewis parents. "Mom, Dad, I didn't mean it. I was just afraid. That when Brother Carter returned, you wouldn't want me anymore. Please give me." Watching Julian cry so pathetically, Evelyn considered giving him one more chance. She rubbed her temples as a headache began to throb. After all, he was still an adopted son she had raised for over a decade. It felt wrong to just kick him out. Richard, however, just casually sipped his tea and continued reading his newspaper. Unlike his emotional wife, he saw the situation clearly. The Lewis family had plenty of money to raise Julian, but they wouldn't harbor a master manipulator. If Julian hadn't exposed his true colors today, things would be different. Richard wouldn't have minded him staying, but now one word from Evelyn was all it would take. With a single call, he'd have someone throw Julian out. "Mom, please give me a chance." Sensing Evelyn's weakness and Richard's coldness, Julian focused his entire act on her. He knew softening her heart was his only chance to stay in this house. Just as Evelyn was about to speak, 3 loud voices suddenly echoed from outside. K.H. Lowe's voice rang out, "That guy is a total scumbag." "Her revenge later is completely justified," Sarah chimed in, "exactly. This is the ultimate Harris returns for revenge plot." Harris himself just replied, "You can talk all you want. Just stop sitting so close to me. If we don't sit close, how can we see the screen?" The 3 of them noisily walked into the living room, freezing at the scene before them. Julian thought, "Holy crap, why are my sisters so close to that country bumpkin?" He screamed internally, but then a brilliant idea suddenly sparked in his mind. He crawled over, grabbing Harris's arm and wailing, "Brother, I was wrong. I shouldn't have framed you. Have pity on me, don't kick me out." If Harris said no, he'd look selfish and cruel. Julian had humbled himself so much. If Harris still refused, it might spark sympathy from the others and boost his chances of staying. And if Harris agreed, well, he got to stay. Convinced of his genius plan, he gripped Harris's arm tighter. But Harris wasn't having it. He smoothly kicked Julian's right shin. And as Julian lost his balance, Harris executed a flawless shoulder throw, slamming him straight onto the marble floor. Bam! The impact nearly broke Julian's back. His agonizing scream instantly triggered the last of Evelyn's maternal instincts. After all, she had raised him. Seeing him get beaten up right in front of her hurt, but before she could speak, Harris beat her to it. "Do I look like I enjoy being abused?" He rolled up his sleeve, glaring with pure annoyance at Julian writhing on the floor. "Why should I forgive a liar who hurts me while pretending to apologize?" On his pale forearm, 10 crescent-shaped fingernail marks, already red and turning purple, were starkly visible. If they were left any longer, they would definitely start to swell. Harris wasn't some pushover. Why would he let him off easily? If using too much force didn't risk violating the system's 1086 rules, he would have given Julian a much more surprising ending. "You have truly disappointed me." Seeing the 10 nail marks on Harris's arm, Evelyn rushed over, holding his arm in pure distress. She couldn't believe this adopted son was still playing such dirty tricks at a time like this. Just a moment ago, she felt pity. Now she just felt like an absolute fool. Seeing Evelyn's disappointment, Julian ignored the pain and frantically explained, "Mom, I didn't mean to, I was just agitated." Having lived in this house for a decade, he knew exactly who held the ultimate power. Richard might look like the boss, but on family matters. He listened to Evelyn's opinion 90% of the time. "It doesn't matter anymore." Evelyn shook her head. With utter disappointment, she looked at Julian on the floor and delivered her verdict. "Carter is back. Julian, you should go back and visit your biological father." Hearing this, Julian looked as if he'd been struck by lightning, slumping to the floor. He was like a fish out of water. He didn't want to go back to that awful fish stall. He was the young master of the Lewis family. How could he possibly live in a place like that? If he left, would he ever get a chance to return? He scrambled over to Evelyn, sobbing, "Mom, I grew up by your side. You are my closest family. As for my biological father, I will find time to visit him and care for him, but I don't want to leave you. Plus, school starts soon. Moving there will just affect my studies." "Second sister, third sister, please listen," but Carter interrupted before he could play the full sympathy card. "Isn't this exactly like when a villain gets defeated? Refuses to go back to their old life and shamelessly clings to the rich family." Hearing this, K.H. Lowe and Sarah stared at Julian with intense scrutiny. Just a moment ago, they were slightly moved, but Carter's reminder made it all click. Translated, Julian's words meant, "I'm used to the rich life. I don't want to go back to that poor dump." Especially after seeing Carter's interaction with old Arthur, Julian looked like nothing more than a gold-digging snob. "You have one night to pack your things." Evelyn brushed Julian's hands from her skirt. "Tomorrow, I will have Butler William take you back." In that moment, she felt like a total failure, having raised a child like this all these years. "Mom, no." But before Julian could continue, Evelyn waved her hand. "Take the young master back to his room to pack." Immediately, two burly maids, like twin demons of the night, hauled Julian upstairs. Carter watched him wiggle like a worm, then timed his interruption perfectly. "Wait, could you not send him back there?" All eyes turned to Carter. Even Julian, wiggling like a grub, showed a glimmer of hope. He swore if he could stay, he'd murder Carter later and mercifully not feed his ashes to the dogs. But Carter's next words crushed him. "Can you send him somewhere else? Old Arthur's health isn't great. I'm afraid this guy will just ruin his mood and shorten his lifespan by 10 years. Send him to the apartment in White Go Estate." Because of their bet, Evelyn knew old Arthur's place in Carter's heart. She pulled him out of the living room to treat his arm. Seeing him dragged away, K.H. Lowe and Sarah followed. Ever since Julian's perfect young master persona shattered, they couldn't stand to look at him. "All right, take him up to pack." Richard gave the final order and left the room. "No, this isn't real." Dragged to his room by the maids, Julian gritted his teeth. Listening to the whispers outside, a venomous light flashed in his eyes. He wasn't resigned to this. Why was he being kicked out like a stray dog the moment that guy arrived? Wait, suddenly, he remembered something crucial and quickly pulled out his phone to message a few people. While Julian was making his last, desperate struggle, the system watched Carter being surrounded by love and doubted it got the wrong script. Shouldn't the family be doting on Julian while the MC licks his wounds in a cramped basement right now? Looking at unreleased tasks, the system gritted its theoretical teeth and issued a new one. "Ouch, ouch, too painful." "Is this your first time?" Carter cried out in his head. He's exactly like that returning villain. Inside the Louis Villa's private theater, Carter and his two sisters were relaxing. Sarah, K.H. Lowe, and Carter lounged on plush sofas, their feet soaking deep inside wooden tubs filled with relaxing herbs, all prepared by their butler, William. Pure bliss, why hadn't they thought of this sooner? Sarah, completely losing her usual cold goddess image, now looked like a totally relaxed, slouching old uncle. Besides the occasional reach to steal Carter's snacks, the only thing she moved were her toes. "I know, right, feels like the last 20-something years were wasted," K.H. Lowe nodded. "In agreement, I just want to lie here and absolutely rot away." This was some next-level relaxation. Seriously, couldn't they grab their own snacks? Watching them devour the last two spicy sausages, Carter's lips twitched in annoyance. He seriously wondered if the system had bound him to the wrong people. These two were nothing like the cold, aloof heiresses devoted to their fake brother. Not at all, they were just two female hooligans. From refusing to even take one bite initially to now being unable to stop, proved one simple truth about spicy snacks. All beings are equal. Carter, your closest, Chloe smiled shamelessly at him. She held out her pale hand. One more pack, the sweet and spicy one. Sarah, who was a bit more reserved, mumbled, I want the super spicy one. Looking at the shameless Khlo and the shy Sarah, Carter was completely speechless. How exactly did he become their personal snack machine? Still, they treated him well. They were nothing like the evil sisters from the novel. Just as he was handing them the snacks, the theater doors suddenly burst open as hallway light spilled right in. The light dimmed the screen. All three of them turned toward the door. Julian. He stood there, his face a mask of disbelief. He just couldn't accept that the three of them were getting along. Second sister, third sister, what are you doing? Thinking he could salvage the situation, Julian forced a smile. I looked everywhere for you two. He couldn't grasp how, in less than a day, Carter had managed to turn his once loving sisters completely against him, soaking their feet and watching dramas. Compared to Khlo's directness, Sarah was more hesitant to completely sever ties. After a decade of affection, she finally answered, Have you packed? What are you doing here? Khlo snatched a spicy sausage from Carter's hand and said coolly, Can't you see our brother is here? As the first one to snap out of it, Khlo's attitude change was the most drastic. Maybe it was because she was an actress. After seeing so many green tea characters on screen, she now saw Julian as one of them, growing more disgusted by the minute. I'm sorry. Seeing Khlo's cold reaction, Julian immediately played the victim, hoping for their attention. Too bad for him. Khlo just glanced his way, then went back to watching the villain get wrecked. No need to apologize, Carter said, noticing the unwillingness in Julian's eyes. He smiled brightly. If you haven't finished packing, get to it. It would be a pain if you forgot something tomorrow. Oh, and close the door. The light is glaring. Since he couldn't just punch him right now, he had to use other methods. After saying that, he simply ignored him and watched the movie. Damn it, seeing the sisters ignore him too, Julian started to panic. Even though he had already called for backup, this was still the Louis's estate. If nobody wanted to keep him, then his backup was completely useless. Julian, get out, Sarah finally said. The light is ruining the movie. Seeing all three of them dismiss him, Julian glared at Carter. With an angry huff, someone stormed out and slammed the door. Bang. At the sound, Khlo and Carter exchanged a knowing shrug. Sarah, on the other hand, was completely absorbed, almost shoving a spicy sausage right up her nose. A while later, just as the movie reached its climax, a knock echoed from the door. Miss, young master. Sorry to intrude. It was Butler Williams, who mentally took a quick note of the movie title on the screen. Miss Coldwell has arrived. Madam asks that the young master please come downstairs. He'd overheard the movie from outside and figured it would be a good one for him and Mrs. Wu to watch sometime. Hearing the name Coldwell, Sarah and Khlo both frowned. A bad feeling was in the air. So Serena Coldwell is his fiancée, right? After Khlo explained, he got their reaction. In the classic story trope, the fiancé always spouts some nonsense like, I will only marry Julian in this lifetime. And right on cue, the system notification popped up. Confirming his suspicions, new mission, meet fiancée Serena Coldwell. After being rejected in front of everyone, he had to cry pathetically. The reward, advanced culinary skills. Reading the mission, Carter's eyes practically sparkled. Crying pathetically was a very broad term. That gave him a whole lot of room to play with. System, why does he feel a chill all of a sudden? Well, little brother, this engagement was set by the older generation before you were even born. As they neared the living room, Sarah tugged his sleeve nervously. If anything happens, don't say a word. Let us handle everything, okay? She didn't want her brother to suffer. And since this involved the older generation, she hoped to resolve it peacefully. Don't worry, second sister. I'll handle this myself, but Carter flatly refused. If he let someone else handle this, how could he possibly execute his master plan? Let him do it. K.H. Lowe pulled on Sarah's sleeve, giving Carter an encouraging look. She was curious to see what kind of surprise this brother of hers had up his sleeve. And if he couldn't handle it, she wouldn't just stand by and watch anyway. Don't worry, I got this. They finally reached the top of the stairs. From their spot, they could hear Julian talking with a girl. Julian, Serena, I'm fine. Just let it go, Serena replied, don't worry, I will get justice for you. Hearing this cheesy dialogue, Carter turned to his sisters with a grin, the bossy female CEO and her fragile little house husband. The joke was so perfect that both sisters couldn't stop themselves from laughing out loud. And that laughter drew the attention of everyone downstairs. Seeing them, Evelyn waved them over. Carter, come here. This is Serena Coldwell, your fiancée from the arranged marriage. Auntie Evelyn, the one I am engaged to, is Julian. The girl, Serena, turned to face them. I assume this is the newly found young master. Let me be perfectly clear. I will not fulfill this engagement with you. Her words were a blunt slap to his face in front of everyone. The family was about to jump in, but Carter spoke up first. Miss Coldwell, you mean you're refusing the engagement with me? A mysterious smile played on his lips. As the fiancée in a classic fake young master novel, Serena was, of course, a proud and beautiful woman. Delicate features, waist-length black hair, and an air of irresistible charm. She was a total head-turner. Yes, I will not marry you. Though she couldn't understand his excited expression, she nodded coldly. I'll be frank, you just came back and used dirty tricks to kick Julian out. Your character is seriously flawed. I, Serena Coldwell, will absolutely not be with a man who lacks any moral character. She glanced at the Louisouis family, braced for a look of guilt, but instead they got stares. Looks that screamed, are you an idiot? Do you even hear yourself? Just as she was about to argue. Our main character made his move, kicking the defenseless Julian aside before grabbing her chin. He then shoved his phone right in her face. The system immediately piped up, stop causing trouble. Trouble? Isn't this supposed to be someone crying pathetically? Did it ever say who had to cry? It didn't specify. He shot back to the system and decisively hit play on the video. Sorry, my character is so flawed, a voice from the phone said, as Serena stared in disbelief. With Julian still writhing on the floor, he let go of her chin with a shrug. It just so happens, I think there's something wrong with your brain too. Marrying me, do you even deserve it? He took a step back to create some distance, since we both agree we're not a match. Go tell your parents, a two-faced weasel and a completely gullible goose. May your love last forever. He had no interest in being cheated on after all. So cutting this unstable element out of his life early was definitely for the best. Besides, his little performance completely fulfilled all the mission requirements. Nothing wrong with that. And as for canceling the engagement, that was her idea, so having her parents compensate them would be completely reasonable, wouldn't it? Serena could only think, what is this? The video ended, leaving Serena absolutely stunned. She immediately turned to Julian on the floor. This is completely different from what you told me on the phone. You see, Julian had told her that our hero had intentionally made things difficult and schemed against him. But now, seeing this video, Julian started crying for real. We're talking actual tears and snot. He never expected the main character to just bypass the script and drop a nuclear bomb. Immediately, weren't they supposed to have a dramatic back-and-forth argument first? Seeing Julian's messy face crawling towards her, Serena, who was a bit of a germaphobe, subconsciously took a half-step back, but to Julian, that tiny movement meant everything. If there were background music right now, it would be the world's saddest violin solo. A tiny action resulting in absolutely massive emotional damage. Our hero mentally patted the system. See, Someone is crying pathetically, just like you wanted. As Julian desperately tried to explain everything, our MC just grabbed a handful of seeds. He pulled them from his pocket, shared them with his sisters, and settled in to watch the show. The system grumbled, but seeing as he'd technically met the mission's requirements, it reluctantly distributed the reward, and then his head started to feel itchy again. In a flash, the full experience of a national-level head chef flooded his mind. But as for the muscle memory to go with it, let's not even talk about that stingy system. After giving the reward, the system immediately sent a request to a higher authority. The fake young master was being completely outplayed. If that video wasn't deleted, how could he compete? While the system was busy scheming, our protagonist was, oh, hold on a second. Including Evelyn, who just appeared from nowhere, the four of them finished up their seeds. All right, Miss Coldwell has made her point, he said. You can leave now. And put your seed shells in the other bag. He just cut right into their drama. We need to eat dinner. As members of the prestigious Coldwell family, surely you aren't going to stay here and beg for a meal. Serena shot him a furious glare, ignoring Julian's desperate excuses as she stormed out of the house. She'd lost a lot of face today. And she definitely had zero good feelings toward him. Serena, don't go, Julian pleaded. Watching her leave, his heart turned to solid ice. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. She was supposed to domineeringly cancel the engagement, which he would then use to his advantage. His only claim to stay was his status as the future Coldwell son-in-law. Now she was gone. So what could he do? Someone go pack his room. Looking at the dejected Julian, Evelyn gave the servants a cold, simple order. Throw away whatever doesn't fit. Before the day ends, get him to a rental apartment. Originally, after a decade of history, she was going to give him a massive downtown apartment. But now, if it wasn't for the fact that kicking him outright after Carter's return would look bad and harm the family's reputation, she wouldn't even offer a rental. Mom, no. All right, put him in the car first. Evelyn just waved her hand dismissively. Take him away. When his stuff is packed, yes, madam, Julian just screamed, let me go. Watching him being dragged away, Evelyn rubbed her temples. Carter, don't mind the Coldwell family. Mom will handle the engagement. Aside from the friendship between the grandfathers, there were major business ties. If Serena was stubborn, Evelyn knew she would need to prepare a backup plan. No night, this is fine. Seeing his mother act so decisively, Carter just smiled, shrugged, and then got serious. Also, Mom, are you worried the Coldwell family might affect our business over this? Since they were helping him, he felt he had to show some competence. A person can choose to be lazy, but they can't afford to be useless. Affection is a tricky thing. It can last a lifetime or just snap in a second, especially inside a melodramatic novel like this. He knew he couldn't just agree to everything, now that Julian was finally kicked out. His next step was to peacefully coast through the story's events until the end, then return to his comfortable slacker life. You understand these things. Evelyn looked surprised, then asked with genuine curiosity, tell me, what do you think? Though she was shocked, this wasn't a state secret, so she quickly calmed down. My opinion is simple. Seeing the three Lewis family members looking thoughtful, Carter spoke frankly. Instead of going to the Coldwells to talk, why not use this chance to test their attitude? If we go to their door, we immediately become the ones at fault. We might even have to pay a price, but if we wait, we lose nothing and we find out their true intentions. If they want to maintain this relationship, they will come to us. If they don't, they probably already wanted to cut ties with our family anyway. Then we can prepare early and find new partners. Of course, if Serena didn't tell her family, this whole theory is useless. In his past life, he managed a massive corporation, so this level of business sense was second nature. He just wanted to chill, not act like a clueless fool. Hearing his explanation, Evelyn's eyes lit up. Brilliant, let's do exactly as you say. Because she'd put the Coldwell relationship first, she hadn't looked at the problem from an outsider's perspective. Carter's analysis was like a wake-up call. She also saw her long-lost son in a new light. Maybe he wasn't as simple as he appeared. Carter, how did you think of all this? Chloe gave him a strange look. Now I'm starting to suspect there's some kind of mysterious old ghost living in your body. How else could you know so much? Third sister, you watch too many movies. Carter just rolled his eyes at her. Then Sarah hooked her arm around his. Why can't it just be that Carter has a talent for business? Second sister, third sister, you both guessed wrong this time, he thought. Muttering internally, he calmly said, it's all on Platinum News, you too should read it when you have time. Instantly, K.H. Lowe and Sarah had the exact same thought. Next time I'll definitely read it. Read the news. No way, not in this lifetime. Seeing her children joking around, Evelyn smiled warmly. She used to worry the siblings wouldn't get along, but blood is truly thicker than water. Meanwhile, at the fish stall, old Arthur was quietly putting away a bank card. He smiled at his fridge, now cleaner than his own pockets. But that smile quickly vanished as he shook his head helplessly and pulled out his 7-star belt, muttering that he needed to practice the electric 5-whip strike more. Otherwise, the next time that kid came back, he wouldn't be able to handle him. The next day, on the way to a country club, Evelyn made Carter dress sharply. He sat obediently in the back, resting his eyes, but internally he was unleashing a storm of curses at the system. Why? Because every video of Julian slapping himself, from his phone to the family hard drives, had mysteriously vanished. Only the system had the power to do something like this. The system's response, I'm wearing headphones, I can't hear you. As he argued with it, the car pulled into the club. The huge welcoming ceremony his grandfather planned was still a month away. Evelyn brought him here today to introduce him to high society first. As for Sarah and Chloe, their task was transferring his school records from the second high school to the elite first high school. Going up the elevator to the rooftop garden, several wealthy ladies approached them. Seeing Carter beside Evelyn, a blonde woman asked curiously, Evelyn, who is this? She usually brought Julian. Bringing a new face naturally sparked some questions. Before Carter could even introduce himself, Evelyn smiled, pulling him forward. This is Carter, my other son. She explained that due to circumstances, he had lived outside until now. Revealing the whole Switchtat birth story could seriously harm the family's reputation, so they decided to hide it. Since they planned to keep raising Julian anyway, Evelyn wouldn't expose his identity, simply claiming the family had 2 sons. Hello, aunties. After the intro, Carter smiled politely. Oh, what a good boy, Evelyn. He looks exactly like you did when you were young. I think he looks more like Richard. Look at those eyes. After some chatter, Evelyn started her spa session with her friends, and Carter used the excuse of going downstairs to rest. He had 2 simple reasons. 1, he didn't need skin care. 2, their enthusiasm was a bit suffocating. Just as he got downstairs planning to find food and slack off, the system chimed in. Ding, detected a female lead nearby. A mission was triggered, help the female lead meet the fake young master. The reward was mastery of musical instruments. This mission was the system's final test for him. If it had a physical body, it would have grabbed him by the collar and screamed, please, I am begging you. Just do the mission properly, stop messing around. Reading the prompt, Carter stopped in his tracks and headed in the direction the system indicated. Since he was free, he figured he might as well have some fun. He had plenty of room to operate here. Unfortunately, the system refused to reveal the plot, so he knew nothing about this female lead. If she was a schemer just like Julian, he'd lock them together for good. Not far away, he spotted the legendary female lead. And you have to say, the standard for a female lead in these novels is always top tier. She looked like she stepped right out of an anime, with delicate features, baby fat on her cheeks, and long black hair. Her clear, dark eyes made her look like an innocent white rabbit, inciting an intense urge to protect her, but her current situation was anything but good. She was surrounded by a group of flashy-looking girls, and the prettiest one was holding a cigarette, trying to force it right into the female lead's mouth. The others formed a circle, ready to teach her a lesson if she dared to refuse. Let her go, no, step aside. Using his physical advantage, he shoved past the outer circle, grabbed the smoker's wrist, and pulled the female lead behind him. What the heck at him, rubbing her arm as if totally disgusted. A guy had just touched her. Was she a lesbian? He judged her internally, then pulled out his phone with a huge smile. Bullying is wrong. If you want to avoid trouble, get lost. He's already called the cops. Period. Reasoning with these thugs had a 1% success rate. But using the cops as a threat, that bumped it to 99%. With punks like these, underhanded tactics always beat reasoning. A lesson he learned surviving in the chaotic fish market. The moment they heard cops, the leader sneered and muttered something to her gang, then yelled, "Watch your back." You got lucky, and then they quickly bolted from the alley. Kids these days believe anything. Watching them run, he smirked and turned to the girl. "Are you okay?" he asked. She looked up, her head slightly lowered, revealing an expression that was both silly and adorable. This female lead wasn't just some naive girl, she was a pure white lotus. Seeing that fragile, pitiful look, he made his assessment. "They're gone. Do you need me to call your family?" "My family isn't here." She just stared at him with her clear eyes, smiling foolishly. "But thank you anyway." Her voice was soft, sweet, and tingled the heart. "Yep, definitely a naive, sweet girl. No need to thank me," he said. "But next time, remember to fight back. Otherwise, they'll just keep pushing you around. Understand, bullying is despicable, no matter the age." Even knowing she was the female lead, he couldn't stop himself from advising her. "I know," she nodded obediently, saying seriously, "I'll remember what you said." "Good," he nodded. "Meeting like this is fate. Let me buy you milk tea." 30 minutes later, he casually sipped his milk tea while checking in with the club system. Holy moly, he was in for it now. Hearing the system's total meltdown, he took a sip of boba and replied calmly, "So tell me, did I complete the mission or not?" If the system had a physical body, it would have shown him exactly why flowers are so red. "I told the host to help the female lead meet the fake young master." "Why did you show her a picture of Julian, a black and white photo at that? Do you think he's dead?" But despite its rage, the system had to accept it. Technically, he did let the female lead meet Julian. "Are you my mom, a mom going through early menopause?" He asked, genuinely curious. "If you systems have genders, do you have kids? Do they have to work right away? Isn't that just a child labor system? I'm deleting myself." Hearing his ridiculous rambling, the system gave up. Dealing with him was harder than dealing with a monk chanting scriptures. At that exact moment, at a barbecue stall near the alley, the girl was happily munching on a skewer while making a phone call. "Help me arrange a school transfer. In a few days, I want to go." A few days later, in the faculty office of Class 12 at First High School, "Carter, I'm leaving." Sarah stood beside him, flashing a peace sign and a bright his sister smiles, telling him to call the family if he needs anything, they'll help him immediately. He just nods helplessly, telling his second sister to go do her work. He hadn't focused on his studies before, so he was at the average second high school. So Evelyn used her connections, transferring him to the elite first high school, claiming the teachers there were vastly superior. This heavy, motherly love was a lot to handle. With his skills before his memories awakened, he barely scraped by at second high. After awakening, he had zero interest in studying. If not for old Arthur's 7-star belt, his grades would have absolutely plummeted. Now at first high, his scores were definitely going to nosedive. But the real reason he came here was the system. Just like the Lewis family home, this school was a major event location. If old Arthur found out he skipped, the thought of his butt shattering into 8 pieces made him shudder. "All right. If you get uncomfortable, just tell me." Sarah pats his shoulder and leaves. "Student Carter, sit here for a moment." After she left, the middle-aged teacher speaks. She says, "Besides you, there's another transfer student today. You two can get acquainted first." a kind gesture to keep him from being isolated. She hoped he'd have someone to talk to. Yes, ma'am. He smiled obediently, sitting in the empty chair and staring at the silent system in his head. He sighed, "Why are you so stingy? Just show me the plot. Would it kill you, system?" He can't hear anything. Just as he was about to keep persuading it, the office door opened. A girl with a backpack walked right in. What a coincidence. Hearing that soft, familiar voice, he looks up. He can't help but smile and wave. "So the other transfer student is you, Sophie." Seeing Sophie Tomos here wasn't surprising at all. This was an event hot spot. It made perfect sense for the female lead to appear, but he didn't expect her to be a transfer student like him, nor did he expect to be classmates. Either Sophie extends her right hand. "Please take care of me from now on." He shakes her soft, boneless hand with a small smile. "Let's take care of each other." Half an hour later, in the back of class 121, the teacher dismissed the class. Carter rubs his aching head. As he expected, the curriculum here was absolutely insane compared to second high. Everything the teacher said sounded familiar, but he didn't actually understand a single thing. Coincidentally, his former fiancée, Serena, was also in this class, but she sat up front while he was in the back. Thanks to the pressure of college entrance exams and existing social circles, nobody came to talk to the new transfer students. As he was packing his books, a soft, nervous voice came from beside him. He turned to meet a pair of clear, sparkling dark eyes. She didn't look away. She just smiled and pointed to a problem in his workbook. "The way you solved this is wrong." She rested her left cheek on her hand, her beautiful eyes curving into crescents. And her baby fat made her seem incredibly pure, like a blooming flower. "What's wrong?" Seeing him stare, Sophie shyly lowered her head, her voice as quiet as a mosquito. "Did I say something wrong? Oh no," he thinks, "this female lead is toxic. How is she so attractive?" He awkwardly purses his lips and points at the workbook. "You're right. Could you explain this problem to me?" "Sure." Sophie looked up, placing the workbook between the two of them. Because she was so focused on explaining, the awkwardness faded. He had to admit she explained it incredibly well. For every single step she patiently explained the principles and methods, so the bottom line was roughly like this. "Do you get it now?" After solving it, she looked up at me. Her eyes were full of hope. I nodded, trying to look serious. "Yeah, roughly." I couldn't exactly say. I was too busy staring at her to hear a word of the explanation. Sophie caught the doubt in my voice and covered her mouth, trying not to laugh. "Want me to help you review?" I took a moment. "Let's see, studying, or a beating from old Arthur's belt?" "Yeah, I'll take the studying." "All right." I patted her head seriously. "In exchange for your help, as long as I'm here, nobody is gonna bully you." I could cram my way through literature and biology just fine, but math and physics, that stuff took way too much time to figure out alone. And the fact that she's the female lead, who cares? The system was dead silent anyway, and it never said the real young master couldn't talk to her. Besides, hanging out with a sweet girl like Sophie wasn't so bad. I made that promise because I'd already seen the bully from the alley in the hall. According to the usual story tropes, his gang was just cannon fodder. There to harass the female lead and push her toward the fake master. Feeling my hand on her head, Sophie blushed and looked up. "Arv, are you saying you'll protect me again?" "Yeah." "What do you think?" I met her shining eyes and joked, "Stick with me. I'll make sure you're well fed and having fun every day." It was the second semester of our senior year. No one wanted major trouble unless they had a death wish. Protecting this innocent girl here on campus was going to be easy. "Then I'll be counting on you to protect me." Sophie's smile was brilliant. This poor girl must have been picked on a lot before. Thinking about the novel's plot, a complicated feeling crossed my mind. But just as I was about to speak, the quiet classroom suddenly burst into conversation. "Look, Julian's here for Serena." There at the door, Julian walked in holding bubble teas. "That's right," he announced. "I brought some for the whole class, just a little back-to-school gift." The class erupted in cheers, praising young Master Julian. He just smiled and brought a cup directly to Serena. Serena, your favorite flavor. Even though he was kicked out, he still thought he had a way back in. His older sister, Fiona, had called, promising to help after her project abroad was done. She even sent him $5 million in pocket money, and with that cash, he was back to living the high life. When he left the Louiswies' house, he couldn't even pack, and his cards were all frozen. Without that $5 million, he really would have had to sell off his luxury goods. As for Serena, a few days of his sweet talk had temporarily fixed the bad impression I'd left last time. On the surface, at least, she was acting normal again. He was here today to secure her. And to deal with me, he knew I was in this class. If I made his life hell at home, he was going to return the favor right here at school. Plus, he wanted to stop me from stealing his girl, not that he knew what I was actually thinking. I told him I didn't care about the engagement, but what if I secretly went after her? If he lost the Louiswies family's backing, he needed the Coldwell family as his backup. Looking at the milk tea, Serena's eyes flickered for a moment before she accepted it. Unlike the show-off Julian, she hated being the center of attention. She headed to the Serena had a soft spot for Julian, thanks to over a decade of friendship. So when rumors spread that he was being targeted, she jumped to his defense. And even though the incident soured her opinion, 10 years of friendship don't just vanish. To save his reputation, she accepted the tea, sparking cheers from the class. Julian's lips curled up, shooting a mocking glance at Carter in the back row. But then his eyes landed on Sophie, sitting right next to Carter, her stunning looks. An innocent aura completely captivated him. Instantly, a devious plan began to form. He brought a milk tea to their desk and offered it directly to Sophie. "You must be the new transfer student, right? Carter's temper isn't the best. It must be hard on you." After fooling Serena, he wasn't as scared of Carter's video. In fact, a delusional voice in his head whispered that the video was probably gone. Empowered by Fiona's support, he dared to provoke Carter once more, but Sophie simply glanced at the drink, then shrank closer to Carter, her hand instinctively gripping his shirt. Her action painted the perfect picture of someone weak and pitiful seeking protection. The scent was strong. Feeling her grip, Carter gently patted her hand and then joked. "With Julian, I heard the projector in this class can play videos. I want to test my phone's Bluetooth connection. What do you think if Julian wanted to play games?" Carter would play along, but seeing Julian's confidence, he figured his videos were deleted. Still, he wanted to mess with him. Hearing those words, Julian began to panic. But only for a moment. He knew his enemy. He knew Carter. If Carter still had the video, he would have just played it, not wasted time talking. It was all nonsense. A tiny smirk appeared on Julian's face as he quietly loosened his grip on the milk teacup. Splash! It spilled all over his pants. "Carter, we aren't strangers. If you don't like me, just say it. Please stop bullying me." Julian's tragic wail made the entire class turn around. Every head in the class turned, hearing him cry about being bullied. The gazes directed at Carter turned strange, compared to a new transfer student. They naturally trusted Julian more, and the students who owed him favors immediately started sneering. Didn't expect someone so good-looking to be a bully. "Hold on, big boss, why are you crying like a little girl?" Carter thought, amused. Hearing the whispers, he stayed calm, resting his chin on his hand, just watching. The whole thing was a show. "You say I bully you, tell me how exactly." If Julian wanted to play big, Carter would give him a performance. Isolate him, let's see who burns. He didn't care about the class's approval, but he refused to take this lying down. Why are you forcing me?" Seeing Serena approaching, Julian took his chance. He secretly pinched his own arm, hard, then lowered his head to look incredibly wronged. You have to admit, he'd perfected his own unique style of playing the victim. Serena reached the back row, seeing his red eyes and the angry red mark. On his arm, her face turned cold. "Carter, you've gone too far," Julian just Wanted to make peace, why would you treat him like this? Her words hammered Carter into the position of the bully. Admitting to anything now would make him the class target. Miss Coldwell, how exactly did I treat him? Carter asked as he slowly stood up. He looked down at the two of them, thanks to helping old Arthur at the fish stall. Carter was a robust 1.8 meters tall. His imposing figure made the whispering students instantly shut up. Most people are selfish, especially in their senior year. Nobody wanted trouble. One wanted to risk their grades defending someone else. So now what? What are you going to do? Seeing Carter stand up, Julian instinctively took 2 steps back, scrambling behind Serena. If you dare touch me, my sister won't let you off. Did he say he was going to touch him? Carter sneered at the boy cowering behind Serena. He just wanted to clear the air. But seriously, hiding behind a girl's back, is this guy for real? Carter couldn't believe this coward would actually pull a stunt like that. What man hides behind a woman? Hearing Carter's words, Serena suddenly put it all together. She felt as if she'd been pushed from behind just a moment ago. With Julian now hiding there, her expression instantly turned ugly. Seeing her face change, Julian quickly made an excuse. Don't frame me, I just slipped on some spilled tea and stumbled. Why are you always targeting me? He took a few steps back at a very convenient time. Carter chuckled right as he stood up, but his memory is terrible. Hey, look over there, what's that? Following Carter's pointed finger, Julian's face turned pale. In the top right corner of the classroom, a shiny security camera hung in plain sight. Where did that come from? It wasn't there last semester. So want to go to the security room and check it out. Seeing his pale face, Carter pretended to be eager. If you're busy, I can go get a copy of the video myself. Carter truly didn't expect him to be this dense. Getting humiliated at the Louis's house wasn't enough for him. He dared to pull the same trick again at school. Meeting Carter's meaningful gaze, Julian knew he had to change the subject. He dodged the question and suddenly burst into tears. Carter, it's senior year. This is a crucial time. I don't want this to affect your studies, but please don't bully me anymore. I just want to study in peace. These words made him seem concerned for his classmates, while implying Carter had always been a bully. 2 birds, 1 stone, so self-righteous and sharp. Just as Carter was about to teach him a lesson, a soft voice chimed in. Why do you keep saying Carter bullied you? You clearly spilled the milk tea yourself, and you intentionally pinched your own arm. Sophie's voice was like a drop of water in boiling oil, and the quiet classroom erupted. Unlike Carter, who had a clear beef with Julian, Sophie, with her adorable, timid appearance, would never falsely accuse someone who had just bought her a drink, and yet she said it. That pretty much confirmed she saw the whole thing. This girl was full of surprises. Carter glanced at Sophie, who was nervously gripping her shirt, and he felt a bit shocked. He thought she would stay quiet, but instead she landed a critical blow at the perfect moment. How could this be? Hearing the growing whispers, Julian forced a smile at Sophie. Carter obviously did it. If he forced you to say that, just tell the truth. We'll all protect you. He'd used this same trick countless times to charm girls. He was confident it would work on Sophie. As long as she changed her story, Carter would be branded a bully for good. I'm telling the truth, Carter didn't force me. Ignoring Julian's sleazy smile, Sophie answered timidly. If you have a problem with it, just check the cameras, and please don't smile at me like that. Her voice was soft but held a hint of fear. Anyone could tell that she was afraid Julian might try something. Seeing this, Carter quietly shifted his body to stand in front of her. You talk too much, just go check the cameras. Carter insisted on the cameras, shattering the rhythm, and Julian panicked. He knew he couldn't let anyone check them. His entire charade would collapse right there. Gritting his teeth in pure frustration, Julian turned to leave. He had to reach the security room now. If there was evidence, he had to destroy it. Julian shuddered, remembering how Carter destroyed him with a single video at Lewis Manor. The entire class just watched him flee, completely dumbfounded. Their worldviews were shattered. Nobody there was stupid, Julian's actions pretty much proved Sophie was right. They realized he'd orchestrated this whole mess just to frame Carter. The way they all looked at Julian changed in an instant. At their age, they hadn't really seen society's harsh side and were still innocent. Julian's scheme opened their eyes. "Take your time." Watching him flee, Carter pointed at a camera. "Forgot to tell you, that one isn't even turned on yet. So no need to rush and delete the footage like last time. When it comes to psychological warfare, Carter's an expert." Now that the system was silent, he could do whatever he wanted as long as he stayed within the rules. Julian didn't answer. He just froze, clenched his fists, and bolted from the classroom. "Anything else, Miss Coldwell?" After Julian vanished, Carter turned to Serena, who was still standing there. But the arrogance in her eyes, gone. She clearly hadn't expected things to go down like this. Plus, with the incident at the Lewis house, this was now the second time Julian had used her as a pawn. Remembering how she'd mocked him twice, Serena lowered her head, completely embarrassed. She bowed slightly. "I'm sorry I misunderstood you." Surprised by her apology, Carter felt a bit awkward but kept his relaxed demeanor. "It's fine, but please keep Julian on a tighter leash. Him causing trouble like this is really annoying." Serena was speechless. After these last two incidents, she was realizing Julian was far from the perfect guy in her memories. The harsh contrast left her completely conflicted. Watching her leave, a subtle smile played on Carter's lips. In these stories, the fake heir's biggest ally at school is always his fiancée. And now Serena was showing signs of defecting. Julian wouldn't be causing much more trouble here. But just then his sixth sense sent a chill down his spine. He turned and saw Sophie's smile was gone. Her clear eyes held a rare look of grief, like a bride left at the altar. Realizing he was looking, she quickly turned away, hiding her face from him. Giving him the cold shoulder. Was she jealous because he was talking to Serena? Seeing her pout, he suppressed a laugh and gently poked her on the arm. "You did great just now. I'll reward you." Hearing the word reward, Sophie froze. She turned back, that goofy smile returning. Her eyes just sparkled with anticipation. She held out her hand. He dug into his pockets and placed something in her palm. "When you're sad, eat something sweet. It'll make you feel better." He brought candy to replenish his own sugar levels while studying. Candy, seeing it, Sophie's eyes lit up. She carefully put it in her pocket, smiling brightly. "Thank you, Carter. You're the first person to ever give me candy." Seeing her treat it like treasure, he couldn't help but imagine her getting bullied. She probably hadn't had it easy at all. Being pretty and seeming weak, it was no surprise other girls would isolate her. "Don't worry, you'll get plenty of candy from now on," he promised her. "Seriously, with me here, nobody can bully you." "I believe you," Sophie replied. She nodded with a smile, then suddenly remembered something and asked softly, "Oh, Carter, that guy from earlier, is he the one in the picture on your phone? Why did he frame you?" Looking into her clear eyes, he decided not to tell her the ugly truth. Instead he said, "Just think of him as a toad. He won't bite, but he's disgusting. Stay far away from him, understand? You, a toad, gross." Sophie shivered while rubbing her arms and nodded. "Seriously, I'll listen to you." Seeing her cute reaction, he couldn't help but pat her on the head. "Don't just believe everything people tell you or you'll get sold off easily. Would you sell me?" Her innocent gaze met his and he quickly looked away. "I was just making an example, I understand," seeing how awkward he was. Sophie smiled earnestly. "Carter wouldn't sell me anyway since there's time. Let's go over our lessons." Carter had to admit Sophie's charm was incredibly powerful. So much so that even though he swore to lock his heart after getting scammed for $5,000 in his past life's online romance, he was actually a little moved. "All right, let's start." Teacher Sophie, as it turned out, was a natural for problems he couldn't solve or got wrong. She always spotted the issue immediately. She would then explain it simply, if only the math teacher taught like her. Time flew and the school day ended. "This is for you, if There's anything you don't understand, just contact me, Sophie blushed, shoving a piece of paper into his hand before running out of the classroom. What a silly girl. He looked at the paper with her contact number and social media handle. A small smile touched his lips. On the way home, he saw Butler William looking hesitant, so he put his notes down and asked, "Butler William, just say what's on your mind." The old butler had peeked at him at least 10 times since they got in the car. "Young master, you are very observant, caught in the act, Butler." William chuckled awkwardly, then finally spoke. "The eldest miss has returned and—" Carter's mind began to race. The butler hadn't known him for very long. But even he must have noticed the major shift in the Lewis family's atmosphere. If Julian was once the center of this house, now it was Carter. Compared to Julian, he never lost his temper with the staff, just yesterday. When Mrs. Wu broke a glass, Carter had even helped her clean it up. That's why the butler was giving him a heads up, so he could mentally prepare. Eldest sister Fiona, he quickly reviewed her info in his head. Fiona was a Harvard finance graduate and the main decision-maker for the Lewis family's company. More importantly, like her two sisters, she was single. Based on the timeline, she was most likely the first to blindly fall for Julian. Thinking this, Carter already had a counterplan. If she really sided with Julian, he wouldn't even need to lift a finger. Richard and Evelyn would definitely give Julian a harsh dose of tough love, returning to the Lewis villa. The moment he stepped into the living room, he heard an argument. "Everyone makes mistakes, Mom. Give Julian one more chance. After all, he's lived with us for so many years. You can't just kick him out because our little brother came back," Fiona pleaded. "Mom, I promise he won't do it again. Please just consider it." To fulfill the wish she promised him, Carter walked into the living room, and the situation became instantly clear. Facing Evelyn was a woman in a suit who looked about the same age as his other two sisters. The eldest, Fiona. Behind her stood Julian, looking like he'd been wronged. Beside Evelyn were Khlo and Sarah. One of them begged, "Just agree. Your health is more important." Analyzing the scene, Carter moved quickly, walking over to pat Evelyn's back. He told her, "Mom, your health comes first. The rest can wait." Carter knew the tropes. Even if he tried to stop Julian, the guy would just weasel his way back in for one reason or another. It was better to take the moral high ground. Besides, without this chaos, how could he get the perfect chance to kick Julian out for good? "Carter, you're back." Evelyn calmed herself, holding his hand with an apology in her eyes. "I'm sorry." Carter knew he and Fiona were both her children. It was an impossible choice. She had only refused Fiona's request earlier because she didn't want to hurt him. So now that he spoke up, giving her an out, she naturally took it and agreed. "It's fine, your health matters more." Carter just shook his head, smiling. He looked from Evelyn to his eldest sister, Fiona, and saw her eyes. They were filled with worry for Julian. Carter just shook his head and helped Evelyn leave. If his guess was right, a pretty good show was about to start. Fiona was Julian's absolute last lifeline. He was going to cling to her for dear life. And looking at her face, her feelings for Julian were not sisterly. Her feelings for Julian were definitely something more, so you put these two together. One scheming for his life, the other blinded by emotion. What happens next? But Khlo and Sarah didn't get his plan. They saw him glance at Fiona, then helped their mom leave, and they just felt sad. "Sister, you went too far." Sarah bit her lip, said her piece to Fiona, and ran after Carter and her mom. Khlo shot a deadly glare at Julian, who was hiding behind Fiona, and then stormed off. In their minds, if Julian hadn't come back, none of this chaos would exist. All they felt for him now was disgust. Should I just go then? Seeing them all leave, Julian, who secretly wanted to run them over, put on a pathetic face. "Mom, second sister, third sister," he whined. "It's okay, Julian, I'm here." Fiona patted his head with a gentle smile. "Go back to your room. I had someone clean it up for you." "Thank you, eldest sister. I love you the most." Julian hugged Fiona tightly. Feeling his embrace, Fiona didn't push him away. A strange emotion flashed in her eyes. Half an hour later, they were at the main dining table. Fiona looked at Carter sitting opposite her and finally spoke softly. "Carter, Julian was just afraid of you coming back. That's why he acted that way. He didn't mean to frame you with that video." She added, "I apologize on his behalf." Fiona was smart. She'd heard about the video, but chose to believe Julian's tears. But after Carter's recent actions, it was hard for her to be hostile. His calm reaction in the living room made it impossible for her to truly hate him. "You don't have to," Carter raised a hand, cutting her off. "What's done is done. Let's not bring it up again. Instead of talking to me about it, you should be figuring out how to apologize to our mom." Ouch. Forgive him. But after Julian's little stunt earlier, that apology from his sister felt way too simple. Seeing he wasn't buying it, Fiona pressed on anyway, saying she was sorry for everything he'd done. She really cared for Julian, but it was pointless. Carter had done nothing wrong. Looking at Fiona, practically begging for her brother, he just propped his chin up and smiled. Instead of dwelling on it, he asked about her trip abroad. If she were a typical villain, he would have already shown her a world of hurt. But she wasn't. She knew right from wrong, so he didn't need to be hostile. Plus, Carter had other plans in motion. Seeing his tone change, Fiona let out a sigh of relief. But there was one thing. What she failed to notice during their pleasant chat was a pair of venomous eyes glaring at them from the second-floor hallway. 10 minutes later, Richard was seated, and the servants started serving the food. Thanks to the calm conversation between Fiona and Carter, the earlier tension had mostly vanished. The Louisouis family hated seeing their children fighting. When the last dish was served, Fiona saw the empty seat beside her and asked the servant, "Why hasn't Julian come down to eat?" At his name, the peaceful mood shattered. Every eye in the room quietly shifted to Carter, worried he would get upset. The servant looked nervous, glancing his way. She pressed her lips together, clearly hesitant to speak. Just as she found the courage to open her mouth, Carter cut her off. "Were you going to say that young Master Julian is in a bad mood and refuses to eat?" He then shot a pointed look at Fiona, making sure she got the message. Hearing his cold, emotionless voice, the servant's hesitant expression just froze. She hurriedly tried to defend herself. "No, if not, then tell us why he isn't coming down." He rested his chin on his hand, his gaze locked on her. With the whole family watching, the servant began to panic. If not for Julian's bribe, she never would have dared to pull this, but now that he'd called her out, what could she say? Her guilty expression said it all. Everyone in the room knew Carter was right. Their disappointment in Julian deepened. "Eldest sister, now do you see why I didn't want him back?" Chloe glared angrily at the servant, then at Fiona. "To protect this family, you need to make him leave." Facing everyone's stare, Fiona opened her mouth but was speechless. The servant's actions made Julian's petty motives painfully obvious. "All right, eldest sister," Carter said, stopping the argument. "I hope you can keep him in line." He shook his head with a smirk. Dealing with this felt like stepping on a toad. It doesn't bite, but it's disgusting. He knew that pressuring Fiona now was useless. She couldn't kick Julian out over one little incident. So instead of dragging this out, it was time to advance his own plans. "I'll go find him right now." Fiona looked at Carter gratefully, then stood and headed upstairs. All right, let's eat," Evelyn clapped, trying to break the tension. "The food won't taste good if it gets cold." At her words, Khlo, Sarah, and Carter nodded in unison and started eating. Richard, however, had remained as calm as an old dog, acting as if Julian's childish drama was completely beneath him. With them gone, the dining room finally calmed down. He knew his time was now. While eating, he casually asks Chloe, "Third sister, how were those movies you recommended?" Movies. Hearing them talk, Sarah immediately protests, "You watched them without me again." This was supposed to be their thing. Why was she suddenly on the outside? Secret watching, Khlo just shrugs, completely indifferent to Sarah's little outburst. She just finished the last one, she says, but compared to the others. This one was a real trip. I mean, seriously, she adds, how could a sister fall for her own brother and defy her entire family just to be with him? She might not have meant anything by it, but everyone else sure did, hearing K.H. Low. The entire Lewis family instantly looks up, right towards the second floor. K.H. Low sees their reaction and gasps. She mutters, no, it couldn't be right. She continues, recalling the movie's plot, when Fiona goes to find Julian. They accidentally hug out of carelessness, and then they accidentally kiss. And K.H. Low wasn't exactly whispering. Hearing this, the Lewis parents immediately lost their appetites. They shoot up from their chairs and bolt straight upstairs. Eldest sister wouldn't really go that far, right? Sarah swallows hard, watching her parents go. She doesn't finish, but everyone gets it. Both Chloe and our protagonist knew. He decides they should go see. It's weird just sitting here eating without mom and dad. With that, he gets up and heads for the second floor, since the moment he realized that Fiona might have special feelings for Julian, he had been waiting. Every little incident had pointed to this day, but this wasn't his real plan. He wasn't going to get Julian kicked out with such a simple trick. Julian may be brainless. But Fiona wasn't a total idiot. She wouldn't do something this stupid right now. So no, this was just the appetizer. Oh, he had a whole feast planned for Julian. A whole series of gifts, and yet, he still underestimated the power of a lovesick brain. Because as he and his sisters reached the second floor, a sharp slap echoed out. It came from Julian's room, followed by the furious shouts of Richard and Evelyn. Get out of the Lewis house immediately, Richard roars. You bastard. How dare you, Evelyn curses. Then Julian's voice, panicking, Mom, Dad, listen to me. It's not what you think. Amidst the chaos, he glances over at K.H. Low. She looks completely stunned. He smirks. Joke's on you, third sister, congratulations. On becoming a prophet, K.H. Low forces a smile. Thanks. 10 minutes later in the living room. The servants had all quietly disappeared, leaving just the Lewis family members. And there, Julian and Fiona are kneeling in the middle of the room, awaiting their fate. Compared to Julian, Fiona looks much worse, despite only having a slap mark on her face. Her hair is a mess, and her clothes even have footprints on them, obvious marks. From where she used her body to shield Julian from their father's rage. Mom, Dad. Since Julian has no blood relation to our family, then he and I, she trails off. Facing her furious parents, Fiona doesn't dare finish, but everyone there understood. No blood relation, so it's okay for them to be together, right? Meanwhile, Julian is playing the coward, keeping his head down, seeing her daughter so unrepentant. Evelyn clutches her chest, looking like she's about to completely collapse. Mom, calm down. He rushes to support her, pulling a heart pill from her pocket. He gives it to her. Don't get worked up. Let me talk to our eldest sister. Julian had just handed him the perfect opening. If he didn't act now, when would he? Was he just enabling his twisted fantasy? After Fiona took the pill, Evelyn stared disappointedly at the daughter she once had such high hopes for, and Carter helped her to the sofa. Richard was furious. He wanted to land a few more hits, but stayed by his wife's side to care for her. Carter then looked at the battered Fiona. Placing a cushion gently beneath her knees, he said softly, think clearly. Having feelings for someone you raised like a brother. He didn't finish, but everyone got the message. Loving your own brother, the thought alone was explosive. If the situation weren't so dire, Sarah would have said this was stranger than fiction. Thank you, Carter. Seeing his simple act of kindness, Fiona's eyes welled with tears. In a moment of crisis, a small comfort can mean everything. I've taken care of Julian since he was little, she confessed. For years, I secretly wished he wasn't my biological brother. Before I knew the truth, I always pushed down my feelings. Even just now, when I went upstairs, I hadn't made up my mind. But when Julian hugged me and said he was afraid you'd take me away, my heart just shattered. Without that emotional trigger, Fiona never would have planned something so reckless at a time like this. During that period, did you ever see a therapist? Carter held his sister's shoulders. Seriously, you two have a massive age gap. When he was a toddler, you were in elementary school already. With that difference, your social circles shouldn't have even crossed paths. So if, despite all that, you still seeing his concerned face, Fiona turned away, her voice small. I wanted to give up, but Julian is just so good to me. I couldn't. Eldest sister, perfect timing. Julian, who'd been playing dead, jumped out with a pitiful, innocent expression, as if he was oblivious to the chaos he'd caused. His words were crafted to be heard in different ways. Watching this fake act, Fiona lowered her head in shame, feeling as if she had tainted her brother's pure affection. So close, just one more push was needed. With that, Carter delivered the final, pointed blow to his sister. I want to know, every time you tried to give up, did Julian make you feel like he felt the same way? And did he ever accidentally create physical contact that crossed the line for siblings? At this, Fiona looked up in absolute shock. How did you know? Julian's face went completely white. But before he could make an excuse, Evelyn shot up from her seat and slapped him. Hard, can't you see he's been manipulating you? Evelyn looked in utter disappointment at the stunned Fiona. Richard clapped his hands, summoning several burly maids. Drag this bastard out. Mom, Dad, don't kick me out. But before Julian could finish, Carter unleashed a thunderous slap across his face. Shut up, you scum. Our sister was so good to you, and you schemed against her. The slap was so brutal, Julian's right cheek immediately swelled up. A tooth went flying. As he hit the floor, Fiona desperately grabbed Carter's arm, trying to stop him from landing another blow, sobbing, Carter, don't hit him. This is my fault, too. She was a true warrior for love. Even knowing Julian had played her, she couldn't just turn off her heart. For her eldest sister's sake, she'd spare him this time. She then helped Fiona to her feet. She would take her upstairs, but Fiona was stubborn, so their mother Evelyn finally screamed. Did she really want to anger her mother to death before she was satisfied, seeing her? Mother panting for breath, Fiona finally lowered her head and sobbed, Mom, please don't. I'll go with Carter. Half an hour later, on a swing in the Lewis family garden. Our protagonist was listening to a horror story, casually chatting on her phone. She was talking to old Arthur about the last few days, but she left out the details. Some things were better left unsaid. Silence was best for the family's reputation. Both for the Lewis family and for old Arthur, since Julian was his son. She didn't want him heartbroken over the fallout from Fiona's punishment. After discussing it, everyone agreed to ground Fiona until she finally woke up. As for Julian, he was, of course, kicked out of the house by their parents once again. But this time there was no car. He could walk or call a cab. She felt a little evil. Looking up at the stars, she put her phone down to tease the system a bit. Hey, are you sure you're not a villain, system? But it just fired back a question. Does this mean I can officially be the bad guy? Then it refused to speak, still scheming. Against her own sister did make her feel a bit guilty, but this operation had successfully pulled Fiona off a destructive path. Julian was just two-faced, worthless trash. As she was talking with old Arthur, Sarah and Khlo suddenly came outside to find her. A servant led them out, supposedly to comfort her. Their real plan was to scare her. But the creepy sounds from her phone stopped them cold. They lined in just as the police officer in the story was about to leave. A little girl in red appeared. Right behind him, holding the skull of a victim that had been missing for days. Mister, are you looking for this? Seeing the officer's absolute shock. The girl just smiled, holding up the rotting skull. This ball is broken. Give me yours. Before he could react, the terrified officer realized something awful. The girl was gone, and as he searched, a chilling laugh echoed right beside him. Misters, your ball belongs to me now, in the dim light of the garden. Hearing this story made Chloe and Sarah turn pale, and they instinctively hugged each other tight. The noise caught her attention, seeing them locked in an embrace. She quietly turned away and said, Don't worry, I swear I won't tell Mom and Dad. But you two should be more careful doing this at home. What if they came out? In her head, she was judging them. She always thought they were normal. Who knew they were a secret couple this whole time, if she hadn't seen this? She would have never guessed, not even if they beat the truth out of her. Hearing this complete nonsense, the sisters froze. Chloe was the first to react. She pushed Sarah away awkwardly. You little brat, what are you thinking? We hugged. Because we heard you listening to a ghost story in the dead of night. Sarah, a bit slower to catch on, hurriedly agreed. Yeah, we were just scared by you. But whether it was true or not, they wouldn't dare to act so recklessly. Especially not after witnessing their parents' absolute fury earlier that night. Sarah knew if she and KHLO were really a thing, they would be locked up. Shipped off to the city's strictest discipline center within an hour, they just wanted to relax. Seeing them explain so desperately, she didn't argue and simply asked them. So, second sister, third sister, why did you really come out here to find me? Had something special, it wasn't his place to interfere. It was much better to just let them be free, but Chloe's look says it all. This kid doesn't believe us. Chloe shoots him a helpless glare, pulling Sarah to sit on either side of his swing. We were worried you were sad, so we came to comfort you. Over time, he no longer felt that initial, painful awkwardness between them. He sometimes wondered if a special bond truly existed between siblings. How else could they become this close in just half a month? Don't worry, I'm not that fragile, he says. Meeting their concerned gazes, he just smiles and waves. If his heart were that weak, he would have dropped dead the moment he returned, meeting his biological parents after a decade. Only to find the house had no place for him if he lacked a bit of self-awareness and an adult mindset. His heart would have already shattered. If he were the original Carter from the novel, he wouldn't be sitting on this swing, casually chatting with his sisters. He'd be stuck in a basement somewhere, enduring the family's cold shoulder and Julian's manipulative little games. Let's just forget about that day. Hearing him mention it, Chloe awkwardly scratches her head. She obviously hadn't forgotten their first meeting, so she seizes the chance to ask her burning question. Carter, when you first came home, did you already know Julian? Had issues. To her, anyone in a strange, new place would naturally try to blend in. But Carter, he shattered the entire family's status quo from day one. Of course, he couldn't just say he knew all about the fake young master story. So he pauses, then offers a believable excuse. At the time, I just thought. He was a bit two-faced, always trying to make me look bad in front of everyone. When he took me to my room, I was sure his personality was twisted. Chloe nods, thinking it over. I see, no wonder you went from fighting everyone to focusing solely on him. Carter smiles at them, not entirely. It's because you two treated me well. If you were the typical evil sisters from the movies, I'd probably still be locked in a battle of wits with you. Sarah just bursts out laughing. You dare compare us to evil sisters? Chloe pouts playfully. Looks like we need to teach you a proper lesson. What are you going to do? He teases back. I'm warning you, I am very tough. Don't you dare tickle me, I surrender. In a flash, the quiet garden fills with their playful laughter. At the same time, from a second-floor window, someone watches. Seeing the three of them having fun, Fiona recalls Julian's actions from that night. She bites her lip, whispering, was I really wrong? At 11 p.m., back in his room, after the great garden war with his sisters, Carter showers and unwinds. He collapses onto his massive 3x3-meter bed. He almost forgot about her. That silly girl. He sits up, pulling the piece of paper from his uniform pocket. He finds Sophie's social media profile and quickly sends a friend request. With all of Julian's drama tonight, he had completely forgotten about her note. If it hadn't felt like something was missing, he might have forgotten for good. A few seconds after he sends the request, it gets accepted. Sophie's avatar is just like her, a soft, fluffy polar bear looking silly and pure. Hello, Carter. I'm your desk mate, Sophie. He thinks she's kind of amusing. Looking at the message, he chuckles and types back fast. Sophie, if you don't sleep now, you won't grow taller. Good night, Carter. He puts down his phone, imagining her smile. He saw her staring blankly at the screen. Had she waited all night? With that thought, he quickly fell into a deep, peaceful sleep. The next morning, inside class 121 at First High School, he smiled, greeting Sophie and sitting down beside her. Good mornings. As he took his seat, Sophie gently tugged his sleeve, offering him a grape. Want one? She smiled brightly, her pearly white teeth showing. Her chubby cheeks made her look just like an adorable hamster. He looked at her expectant and slightly nervous eyes and simply nodded with a smile. He took a bite of the grape. A sweet, refreshing taste instantly filled his mouth. He gave a thumbs up. Amazing, he could never pick grapes this sweet himself. Naive, sweet girls like Sophie were adorable, but he knew society wasn't kind to this type, especially a timid one. Stepping into the real world was going to be tough. Bad people always seemed to drag the good ones down, but he liked her and wanted to help her change her situation. For shy people, encouragement is everything. So he never missed a single chance to praise her. Hearing his words, Sophie's cheeks flushed red, her eyes sparkling. She took more grapes from her desk and handed them to him like a priceless treasure. I still have more. Looking at her silly smile, he smiled right back. Then I won't hold back. If you want to eat anything in the future, just tell me. I'll get it for you, okay? He truly couldn't understand why bullies would ever target such a sweet girl. At his words, Sophie's eyes lit up with pure joy. Seeing him finish the grapes, she tried to find more, but her desk was empty. All gone. Noticing her action, he awkwardly scratched his cheek. He had eaten her entire supply. Oh, it's fine. Seeing his reaction, Sophie just smiled, pulling a whole box of grapes from her bag. Here I have plenty. She handed a few more to him, but this time he shook his head. You eat them. If you give them all to me, what will you eat? Even though he'd had a huge breakfast, eating all her food again was too much. But I still have a lot. Seeing him refuse, Sophie pointed at her bag, looking at him with pitiful, shimmering eyes, like she was about to cry. This girl's charm was way too powerful. Meeting her expectant gaze, he changed his tone, then just this last time. You keep the rest, understand? Even though he was clearly the one benefiting, it felt like she was the one taking advantage. He took the grapes, eating and teasing her. Why does it feel like you're the one playing me? Sophie just giggled, scratching her head. Because you said you would give me lots of good food, so it's only right I do this for you. This silly girl. Just as he was about to say something, Sophie glanced at her watch and whispered, I'm going to the restroom for a bit. Watching her leave, he was left completely speechless. She even reports going to the bathroom. If this keeps up, will she start reporting when she eats or drinks? Her naive behavior made him feel like he was raising a daughter. If he treats her like a daughter and they end up dating, wouldn't that make him a creep? When she hadn't returned, he decided to leave the classroom. Suddenly, he heard a commotion. There's only one sausage here. You think this will protect you? She was actually getting cornered in the bathroom. Hearing the voices from inside the restroom, he immediately kicked the door, hard. The locked door crashed straight to the ground. That wasn't a kick. Kicked wide open, the loud crash startles the delinquent girls cowering inside. They stare at the busted door, swallowing whatever curses they had planned. If he kicked them like that, their little frames would never survive it. Was this door made of paper? He stares at the fallen wood, genuinely stunned. Even with his current strength, a kick like that should be impossible. But then he remembers this is just a school, old doors, high humidity. Most of it was probably a fragile shell. Whatever, his eyes find Sophie. Sophie, come here. 20 minutes she was gone, and this is what happened. She was cornered. He just promised he would protect her, and now this. Hearing his voice, Sophie keeps her head down and bolts over to his side. She was running like a pack of wolves was right behind her. He shields her. Are you okay? Sophie just shakes her head slightly, whispering back, I'm fine. That's good. He holds her shoulders, moving her to a safer spot nearby. Wait here, I'll be right out. No fighting. but as he turns to go back in, Sophie yanks on his sleeve. She knows fighting will only cause more trouble. "Don't worry," he says, "I'm just going to talk some sense." He pats her head. "Seriously, just be a good girl and wait, understand?" She quietly agrees. With Sophie safe, he walks back into the restroom, eyes locked on the leader. "Hey," before she can even get a word out, he grabs her arm and throws her. A majestic 360-degree shoulder throw. The sharp pain makes her gasp. She's about to scream a curse at him, but then her entire face freezes. She snaps her mouth shut. "Listen up, don't you ever cause trouble for her." "Not again." He glares at the stunned girl, taking the cigarettes from her pocket. He tosses the whole pack into the sink. If this ever happens again, he warns, it won't be this simple. "You stole her grapes. This pack is compensation. Don't steal anymore. He'll take something every time. It's only fair." Those girls holding grapes definitely took them from Sophie. He doesn't smoke anyway. Trashing them was the best option. Seeing no one dares to argue, he stands up. He gives them one final glare and walks out. Class is starting, no more time. No time to waste on them, but as he leaves, a strange look flashes across the leader's eyes. It's not anger, but a weird sense of injustice. On the way to class, Sophie is quiet, head down, acting like she's at fault. He gets annoyed and pokes her forehead. "You silly girl, don't you know how to fight back when you get bullied?" Sophie just covers the spot where he poked her. "Because you said you'd protect me," she whispers, "so I knew you would definitely show up." Her voice is small but firm, and he's suddenly at a loss for words. After a moment, he gently lifts her face, telling her, seriously, "Listen. I can't be there all the time, right? So you have to learn to stand up for yourself. To say no to their ridiculous demands, understand, even if it's hard." Her sweet, naive nature just makes him want to protect her even more. But he can't be attached to her hip 24/7. This is the only way. Feeling the warmth from his hand, Sophie blushes, nodding with a tiny voice. "I know." Then she hurriedly pulls the last few grapes out from her pocket. "Here, you eat the grapes. Didn't she just say she understood?" He looks at her. Seeing that serious, innocent face, he can't help but pinch her cheek. He tells her she has to say no, that it's not okay. Got it. His exasperated gaze meets hers. Sophie blushes but argues back. "Seriously, I don't think giving you food is a bad thing. You're different." But before he can continue his lecture, an angry voice rings out, shattering the moment and forcing them both to look. It's Serena, storming towards them and dragging Julian, who's clutching his cheek. Of course these two are together again. Seeing them approach, Carter acts. He shields Sophie behind him, asking coldly, "What's the matter?" Julian has already left the Louisouis family. Why are you still targeting him? But Serena glares right past him, at Sophie blushing behind his back. Targeting Julian is one thing, but why bully Sophie too? He glances at Julian, still hiding behind Serena. He challenges her, "You say I'm targeting him. Why not ask him where that slap mark came from? And now claiming I bully my new friend. All I can say is if you won't use your eyes, donate them to someone who needs them." He's stunned that Julian, after all the drama at the Louisouis' house yesterday, would dare drag Serena here to cause him trouble. How big is this guy's ego? Or does he think Carter is a pushover he can step on? "Serena, I'm fine." Julian pulls on Serena's sleeve, looking at Sophie peeking from behind Carter, and says pitifully, "Sophie, don't worry. Carter is just a bit rough. If you're worried about anything, just tell us. We'll help you solve it." After being kicked out of the Louisouis family again, Julian knew his chances of returning were almost zero, so he had to hold on to Serena for dear life. Plus, he had to make her despise Carter. So even if their families tried to push an engagement, she would never choose him. If she chose Carter, he could still swoop in and enjoy a life of luxury. That's why right after leaving, he called Serena. Claiming Carter threatened to leak his old video if Julian didn't do exactly what he said. And that terrible excuse actually worked. He still thought Carter was two-faced, one way to his face, another behind his back. Sophie speaks up. "You know, casually calling someone rough is very rude." Looking at Julian's pitiful act, Sophie grips Carter's shirt, totally confused. Also, boys usually protect girls. Why are you hiding behind a girl's back? Are you wanting Serena to protect you? And why do you keep saying Carter bullies you? I haven't seen him do anything bad or bully anyone. Her expression was sincere, not defending Carter, just stating what she saw and understood. But her string of deadly questions froze Julian's pity party. He couldn't answer a single one, especially the part about hiding behind Serena. That question felt like putting his neck on a guillotine. He quietly steps out from behind Serena, lowering his head, pretending he wants to speak but can't. Intentionally showing off that slap mark on his face, he knew anything he said now would be wrong. Playing the victim was his only chance to flip the situation. Seeing Julian silent and noticing the slap mark, Serena frowns and turns to Carter. "Anyway, you slapped him, didn't you?" she asks, though she senses something isn't right about his reaction. But things had already gone this far. She couldn't just walk away now. "Yes, I slapped him," Carter admits, raising a hand. "Don't rush." "I'm not finished." He then steps forward, grabbing Julian by the collar, ignoring his struggles, and slaps his other cheek hard. But he feels as if he wasn't the one who delivered that first slap. "You hit me again," Julian cries out. With a searing pain on his cheek, Julian howled, unable to remember which slap this was. For over a decade, he'd rarely even been bumped, let alone struck like this. "You violent thug," let him go. Seeing the attack, Serena grabbed the man's arm. "Let go or I'll never forgive you," she screamed. He simply told her to fix her brain. He released his grip, and Julian, losing all support, slumped right to the floor. "Julian, are you okay?" Serena immediately crouched down to help him up. "Serena, you see that? He hit me again," Julian cried, diving into her arms. He then pointed at Sophie. "He's a thug. Stay away from him before you get hurt." But strangely, Sophie didn't move. She just stared intently at Julian's cheeks. Her expression was pure confusion. The slap marks, they don't match. One is big, and one is small. Her voice was soft, but it cut through the air, silencing everyone. Even the howling Julian froze, sucking in a sharp breath. Serena pushed him away. She inspected his cheeks, and indeed, the right handprint was much larger than the left. The finger marks, in particular, were noticeably longer. The moment she saw it, she knew. Serena's face turned dark. This was the third time Julian had used her like this. "Julian, what is going on? Explain yourself." She stood up, looking down at him. A decade of friendship, yet he'd used her as his weapon 3 separate times. It was just unbearable, no matter how patient she was. This was the final straw. It even made her question if the previous 2 incidents had been completely fake. As she thought about it, her expression grew even colder. Their argument had drawn a crowd. After hearing Sophie, the students all started comparing the marks on Julian's face. The whispers started. The truth was becoming painfully obvious to everyone. Julian had set this entire thing up to frame him. Seeing Serena's cold fury, Julian's face went white. He never, ever expected it to backfire like this. The real slap from yesterday had almost faded overnight, to look more like a victim he'd slapped himself. He wanted to make the mark prominent. He didn't realize that mark would be his downfall. The very evidence that exposed his entire lie. "Serena, listen, it's not like that." Seeing the situation spiral, Julian blubbered nonsense through his sobs, and just as he was about to get up, he suddenly went limp and fainted. "Julian," Serena panicked, seeing him fall. They had known each other for 10 years. If something happened to him because of her, she could never forgive herself. The crowd started to panic as well. Some suggested calling an ambulance. "No need," he said. "Don't waste public resources." He crouched down next to Julian and casually pulled off his shoe. Julian felt it. 10,000 alpacas stampeded through his heart. He'd forgotten about the tickle move. That's right, Julian was faking it. Again, this was his go-to escape plan. Whenever he faced an unsolvable problem, he'd just faint, back at the Louis's house. If our hero hadn't been there, no one would have realized he was faking that time either. His entire scheme would have been swept under the rug, learning his lesson this time. He held his breath, thinking that if he couldn't smell his own feet, he'd be safe. He thought he was so clever, but while Julian focused on not breathing, our protagonist lifted the shoe high and slammed it down hard on the sole of his foot. A miserable scream echoed through the hallway. Julian clutched his foot, rolling in agony. He calmly tossed the shoe down beside him. "Just a joke, Julian," he said. "Next time you fake fainting, try to make it a little more believable, will you? You always pass out at the most convenient times. I'd feel bad not exposing you." He ignores the whispers and strange looks, pulling Sophie straight into the classroom. Meanwhile, Serena just sighs, watching Julian still rolling around on the floor. She doesn't say anything, just gives him a disappointed look and walks away. As for Julian, besides the whispers from the students, nobody else even cares. A teacher eventually shows up, and Julian gets up with a seriously bruised ego. He just slinks away to his own class. Inside, Carter gets Sophie seated. He gives her a playful smile, surprised by how observant she really was. He thinks if she became a detective, she would absolutely be a top-tier agent. Sophie says nothing, just lowers her head while gently holding his right hand. She asks softly, "Does it hurt?" That was the hand he'd used to slap Julian. It's simple physics. If Julian's face swelled up, his palm definitely took some damage. He feels her soft hand, noticing the faint, sweet scent coming right from her. He awkwardly turns his face away, telling her that it's completely fine. He insists he's trained, but Sophie gently points out that it is all red. She holds his hand, blowing on it and asking, "So what is that guy's deal?" "I feel like he's always targeting you." Carter tells her that it is a long story. Watching her gently blow on his hand, he half jokes that she will think it is cheesy. He jokes it's like a soap opera before briefly explaining Julian's whole deal. And his motives, he then warns her, "So seriously, if you ever see him. Alone, stay as far away as possible. Understand, toads are disgusting." Sophie just shudders, rubbing her arms. She nods seriously, promising to listen. Seeing her adorable look, he helplessly pats her head, giving her a warning. "Don't just believe everything you hear. You'll get taken advantage of." She asks, "Would you sell me?" Her direct gaze makes him look away. "It was just an example," he stammers. "Understand, I get it." Seeing him so flustered, Sophie just smiles knowingly. She adds seriously, "Carter wouldn't sell me," then asks for help studying. Carter has to admit, Sophie's charm is ridiculously powerful, even for him. He swore to lock up his heart after being scammed out of $5,000 online. But he's a little swayed. "All right, let's start," and teacher Sophie is truly something else. She had a true gift for teaching. For problems he struggled with, she'd immediately spot the issue and explain it simply. He muses that if the math teacher taught like her, nobody would ever sleep. Time flew, and soon the break arrived. As he was about to continue the tutoring session with Sophie, Serena approached them. Serena was handing out placement test papers, a task given by the teacher. She arrived at their desk. Unlike normal classes, this elite one requires pre-study. So on the first day, teachers gave a test to see where every student stood and adjust the teaching pace accordingly. Seeing Carter and Sophie laughing, Serena gets a gloomy look in her eyes for a second, but she quickly hides it. She puts the test papers on the desk, telling Carter, "I'm sorry that I misunderstood you again. If you need it, I can help you with reviewing." Because she got into school through the Lewis family, she knew a little about him. His grades were not top tier. 80% of the class could easily outscore him. He says no need to apologize, and who knows about a next time anyway. He waves his hand dismissively, then glances at the adorable Sophie beside him. "As for reviewing, I've already got a teacher. No need to bother Miss Coldwell." His words were harsh, but Serena couldn't refute them. It was the third time she'd been used as a pawn by Julian to bother him. If roles were reversed, she might have said something much worse. Still, she wanted to make amends. When he changed the topic to Sophie, Serena pursed her lips and left with the test papers, saying nothing. Once she was gone, he glanced at his miserable test paper and asked, "Hey, Sophie, if I keep asking questions, will it affect your grades?" He didn't like Serena, but he had to admit she had a point. His current grades were a total mess. Catching up would take so much time and effort, but Sophie was different. He saw how easily she explained math yesterday. She clearly had a talent for science. If he dragged her down and caused her grades to drop, he'd rather just hire a tutor, even if it cost him his free time. Hearing his worry, Sophie showed a rare confidence. "It's fine, I've learned it all." Seeing her calm composure, he asked suspiciously, "Learned just the first part, or the whole thing?" She playfully tapped the textbook on her desk. "Before school started, I finished studying all the 12th grade material at home." Meeting her clear eyes, he knew she wasn't bluffing. Senior year had just begun, and she had already finished the entire curriculum. In other words, if she really wanted to, she could just stay home and wait for the college entrance exams. With her pace and scores, the teachers probably wouldn't have any objections. Looking at her innocent appearance, he curiously poked her on the head. "I wonder how your brain got so smart." Feeling the familiar gesture, Sophie just smiled sweetly and said nothing. "Ah, you're a genius. You must have been top of your class at your old school, right? Just okay." She rested her chubby cheeks on her hands, thought for a second, and then said, "Probably in the top 10. "What do you mean, probably?" Hearing her uncertainty, he suspected she was bragging. "Or top 5, as he asked, he saw her duck her head as if trying to hide completely. That's when he guessed it. "Sophie, are you better at science subjects?" Since she was a terrible liar, she might actually be ranked lower. The only reason could be that her grades were unbalanced. Since she taught math and physics so easily, the humanities must be dragging her down. Hit with his sudden question, Sophie jumped, stammering, I think so." "Knew it," he looked at her seriously. "Then let me help you with humanities, okay?" Having lived 2 lives, he was incredibly confident in any subject that just required memorization. Humanities are all about the right memorization tricks. It's not like science, where even after you memorize formulas, you need a deep understanding to solve problems. But unexpectedly, Sophie shook her head vigorously. "Huh, you don't trust my humanities skills," he quickly explained. "Actually, I'm weak in science, but humanities are a total breeze. If you don't believe me, test me. It's not that," she lowered her head, whispering, "I help you with science, you protect me. But if you help me with humanities, does that mean you won't protect me anymore?" Her logic was painfully clear, the principle of equivalent exchange. She helps him study, he protects her, but if he helps her study, the balance is broken. She'd have nothing left to give in return. If she accepts his help, protection might no longer be part of their deal. Looking at the nervous Sophie, he was left speechless. This silly girl was so pure it hurt. Want to tease her, but that was precisely what made her so endearing. A few seconds of silence was enough to make her mood plummet, her eyes filled with tears, her voice trembling. "You also think I'm useless, so you won't protect me anymore, right?" It seemed if he nodded, her tears would fall instantly. No, it's not that." Seeing her pretend to be strong while a tear was about to fall made him feel guilty. "Don't cry, I'll always protect you." He felt like if he didn't say it, he'd kick himself later. Hearing this, Sophie wiped her tears and showed a bright, sweet smile. "Then let's pinky promise." He's this old and still doing pinky promises. Even so, he gently hooked his finger with her small one. Her little hand was soft and cool like ice cream on a summer day, a surprisingly pleasant feeling. Hey, we promised. You better keep your word." Looking at their hooked fingers, Sophie put on a rare, fierce look, as if breaking the promise would have dire consequences. But her face wasn't suited for being fierce at all. She just looked like she was trying to be cute. A gentleman's word is his bond. He pulled her pinky and smiled. "Please take care of me from now on, Teacher Sophie." Time flew, and just like that, another class was over. Looking at his mistake notebook, Sophie rested her chin on her hand and smiled. Carter is so smart. You already know almost everything. Keep your voice down. It's all thanks to teacher Sophie's excellent teaching. He put away his notebook, stretched, and then asked, "Are you going to the restroom? I'm heading there." He hadn't forgotten she was cornered last time. Asking like this was his way to offer protection. Sophie's cheeks turned a little red. "I'm not going." "You go ahead, then I'll go alone." But just as Carter was about to stand up, 6 or 7 students from other classes suddenly appeared at the doorway. Before anyone could react, they locked eyes on him and started whispering, "Look. That guy in the back row is Carter. He's the one who hit Julian's face. You can't judge a book by its cover. I never expected him to be so violent. I don't understand how someone like him is still in this school." Hearing these whispers, the students in Carter's class started looking at him strangely. They knew what happened at the door earlier, so they understood why he slapped Julian. Although they were a little scared of his violent side, they didn't think he did anything wrong. After all, once a schemer's true colors are revealed, everyone hates them. Hearing the gossip, Sophie showed a rare expression of anger. Just as she was about to say something, Carter joked with her. "Sophie, wanna bet Julian is hiding somewhere nearby? As soon as I act up, he'll pop out, apologize, and say some cringy lines." With Julian's level of manipulation, he still dared to challenge Carter. He knew exactly what the guy was planning without a second thought. Wait for the perfect moment to play peacemaker, making everyone focus on his kindness. If successful, he'd play the victim card and completely wipe away the negative impression from earlier. Sophie was stunned, resting her chin on her hands and looking curious like a child. "Really, let's test it." Carter walked toward the crowd, raising his voice. "What, are you guys here to stick up for Julian?" He didn't lower his voice, so nearby desks heard what he told Sophie. All eyes turned to the classroom door. 6 or 7 seconds later, Julian did not disappoint. He ran in from the door and began his act. "Carter, don't do it." Julian raises his hand. "They're my good friends, they just came because. They saw my face was hit. If you're unhappy, blame me, don't touch them." "They're innocent," he cried, with tears and snot running down his face. But a few students in the back had already heard Carter's chat with Sophie. And they couldn't help but laugh out loud. What's so funny? That laughter made Julian freeze mid-performance. A sick feeling rose in his gut. He came to mediate. He was trying to save his image for Serena, to fix his whole persona, but that laughter told him this was all about to go south, and sure enough. A student was clutching his stomach, laughing until it hurt. "Julian, how come I never knew your acting was this good?" Then he excitedly repeated Carter's prediction. He laid out what Carter had just said. Instantly, the whole room's opinion of Julian changed. Even the friends who came to his defense now had a dark look in their eyes. Hearing this, Julian felt like 10,000 alpacas were stampeding through his head. It turns out, before he even started, that bastard Carter had cut off all his escape routes. If Carter hadn't said anything, this act of protecting friends might have worked. But now, he just looked like a clown directing his own play, using others. Just using them to build his own image. Reading their eyes, Julian knew he was finished. He was doomed. Just as he was about to fake fainting, he saw Carter's lingering stare. A look from the corner of his eye that basically said, "Go on, faint. I've got a new trick waiting just for you." The whispers grew. How did it turn out like this? Louder and louder. Julian stopped caring about saving face and just ran out of there. For now, his reputation was only ruined in class 121, if he stayed. It probably wouldn't stop with just this class. Seeing Julian flee, his friends exchanged glances and quickly bolted too. Carter watched their pathetic retreat. As they scurried away, he crossed his arms and smirked. Maybe next time, ask questions. Before defending somebody, don't get played like a fool without even knowing it. If Julian wanted them as human shields, Carter would make sure they caused him problems. Trouble was brewing. A teenager's ego is a sensitive thing, Carter's words were. Like holding them over an open flame, even if they didn't get physical with Julian. They'd definitely hit him with some petty tricks, After they vanished, Carter turned back. He smiled at the students staring at him. All right, everyone, the entertainment's over. Time to get back to studying. Most of the class laughed. This little drama was seriously gripping. It was just a shame that it ended so fast. If he hadn't exposed the plan beforehand, there would have been even better scenes. At this moment, everyone was subconsciously hoping Julian would show up again after his joke with the class. Carter casually strolled back to his seat, but before sitting, he felt a certain gaze. A look of pure admiration from a certain girl. Sophie's eyes were beautiful and so expressive. She said nothing, but he could feel the joy pouring from her. A look that said, "See, I told you I was right." He sat down, acting cool. Like everything was under control. I knew that schemer would jump out on cue. Carter is so amazing. Sophie clenched her fists, practically glowing. There were so many of them. And you weren't scared at all. If that were me, I wouldn't even be able to speak, maybe from all the excitement. Her cheeks turned a rosy, charming pink. All right, no need to exaggerate, he thought, faced with her totally sincere compliments. This non-stop praise was actually making him feel a bit embarrassed, thinking about it. With Sophie being bullied, Carter stepped in and made her an offer. He planned to teach her a few quick, brutal moves, like the groin strike, or even an eye poke. Serena was still watching them, her hearing much better than most, so she'd been listening to his side of things. She instantly heard him say Julian would jump out. At first, she was skeptical, even though Julian had tricked her several times. She still refused to accept he was two-faced, but reality gave her a harsh slap. He didn't just jump out, he did it exactly as Carter predicted. Thinking of his actions, her recently settled heart was thrown into chaos again. He was getting so much further from the sunny boy in her memories. Meanwhile, at the door of class 128, since 121 and 128 were on different floors, it took Julian a few minutes to get back, but he didn't enter right away. He stopped to look at his friends a short distance away. A master manipulator. He knew he had to smooth things over with this group, if any of them told the real story. His carefully crafted persona of 2 years would just collapse. He didn't have the energy to brainwash them all over again. The best way was to handle them now, make sure they kept their mouths shut and align their stories. That way, even if class 121 students talked, his status in 128 would be safe, keeping his chance for a comeback alive. Thinking this, he hid his venomous look and flashed a smile at his friends. Thanks for standing by me, everyone, for the next week, starting today. Snacks and lunch are on me. How does that sound? The students glanced at each other, then nodded together. Only an idiot would turn down an offer like that. Tangible benefits are the most convincing deal. I'm heading in. Once they entered, Julian's smile dropped, his gaze fixed